across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. This is Petrie here with you now until 1 o'clock in the morning. And coming up at midnight is our hour-long phone-in. And I do want to talk to you about Gregg Wallace and actually expand that a bit to one of the quotes that he said that I was reading a bit earlier on is that sort of quite a way through his tenure on MasterChef, he decided that he was too frightened of young people to go out for a beer if they were out on location or whatever, and the crew all get together and have a beer at go down the pub together or whatever at the end of the shoot. And he said he was too scared to go out with young people because he felt that they would complain about him. So there was part of Gregg Wallace that understands, completely understood what he was doing was potentially wrong. Now, this is ahead of the report. The full report comes out tomorrow, but Gregg Wallace has said he's seen the report and he has been found to be not guilty of the most egregious of the complaints against him. So I'm taking his word at this, quite dangerously, to discuss this. But I do want to know if anybody feels sorry for him. If he says now that he's got autism, he was there for 21 years. His autism, he thinks, is the reason that he couldn't read the room properly. He didn't quite understand what was going on. Or is it just because he's a man of a certain age, as using his own phrase when he was talking about women of a certain age. Now, the reason I want to talk about it is because I want to know from you, perhaps some men of a certain age, how you feel about workplace banter or pub-based banter. And are you confused as to what the rules are now? And if there are any younger men out there, maybe you could give us a call and tell us what the rules are the way you see them. I mean, the thing is that a lot of this banter was never okay. It really wasn't okay. Women put up with it. And I mean, when I was a young journalist and the only female reporter in the newsroom, there was a heck of a lot of banter. And the only thing I could do was, because I had brothers, was to match them. And that's where I learnt to swear brilliantly. But you just had to. I had to match them. I wasn't that offended. Like I said, I was brought up around boys. I didn't really care. But I can understand that people would get upset about it. But has it gone too far, do you think? And what's it like at your workplace now? Do you have to mind your P's and Q's? And do you have to be very careful how you speak, perhaps to the younger generation, and save all that banterous, sexist jokes or whatever it is you might want to tell just to your close friends? Has it become a dangerous place to have a sense of humour? The UK. So that's what I want to talk about at midnight. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. You can message as well, 87222, put the word talk up front. And you can also WhatsApp on 0344 499 1000. Before that, we have Amy Fisher in the studio, former Director of Communications for the Conservative Party. She'll be here going through the front pages of the newspapers for Thursday. Andy Lound is here, our favourite spaceman. He'll be talking us through some of the things that are going on outside of this world. Lottie Hume will also be here, a senior reporter at The Sun. She's going to be talking us through some entertainment news as well, talking about Gregg Wallace there in that. But before all of that, of course, the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, has been and will be in the UK for one more day. He is going to be having the UK-France summit tomorrow. So all of this talking beforehand has just been sort of friendly chats. But there is the summit that is taking place where proper policies, I suspect, will be discussed. One of the main things is the boat crossings. The other is that with the UK and France being the two nuclear powers in Europe, then it'd be closer defence links, I would imagine, as well. That'll be a major thing that they'll be talking about. But the boats is probably what you're interested in talking about. Look, we pay France £500 million. They're supposed to be using that money to prevent boats from coming across. However, it doesn't seem to be working, does it? And there are many reasons probably for that, but one of them politically will be that if Emmanuel Macron is seen to be helping Britain out too much in terms of holding migrants in France or allowing migrants to return in a one-in, one-out basis, then the French may not be very happy about that. Politically quite poisonous for him. He's got the right wing on his heels with Marine Le Pen. So politically it's very difficult for him, and also the EU. The EU, we know that there have already been countries that have complained about this idea, because if we don't take this 50,000 migrants a year that come across on boats, then they're going to stay on the mainland of Europe and just presumably just move around Europe until they find somewhere. So that won't be very popular either. So I don't know whether you believe anything is going to happen or not, but there is quite a long history, of course, with the boats coming across and the increasing numbers that are there. Let's talk now to David Maddox, who's the political editor at The Independent. A very good evening to you, David. Thank you for joining me. This is really tricky for Mr. Macron, isn't it?
It is, actually. It's as tricky for him as it is for it seems like succession of prime ministers in this country who have been kind of banging their heads against walls trying to deal with this problem. And you're absolutely right. He's got this dual problem of very right wing. I mean, makes reform look quite kind of tepid. Marine Le Pen's party, the National Rally, on his heels, and ever-increasing votes at elections based on the whole immigration row, and of course the EU are not very keen on the UK being able to return people having left via Brexit. So it's a difficult one. The irony is that the solution that Keir Starmer is proposing, in which, in fairness to him, Rishi Sunak also proposed, is the one which would actually genuinely break the model. Because if you can start returning them to northern France, then people will stop going to northern France. But it's very hard to get through the politics of that.
I mean, it is interesting to me, though, that the EU as a bloc doesn't really seem to have addressed this. I mean, you've got, just to go off topic slightly from Macron, you've got the Polish now sending soldiers down to the border in Germany, so that because of what's happening in Germany, a lot of people are trying to go across there. So you've got it's a problem for the whole of the EU, and yet they don't seem to be making any really solid plans to stop it.
No, and there's actually a great variation of policies. I mean, if you look at the Polish, but even more so the Hungarians have basically ignored Brussels altogether and just done their own thing. I mean, literally erecting fences and barriers and so forth. And it's, I mean, I go back to 2016 on this, when I was on the other side of a Brexit debate, when I was working for the Express. I still think one of the things which turned that whole referendum was the disaster in Germany when basically Angela Merkel invited 1 million people into her country. We started getting these stories from Cologne and things. I don't think we ever got to the bottom of the truth of that. But the shocking reality of those stories, I think, probably tipped us over the edge into voting for Brexit, and and the mess has just continued. Since the event just got worse.
And it's really interesting because we know, because the referendum was ruled that it was faulty, that people were lied to. Right, so when people were talking about we can cut migration from Europe, I genuinely believe that a lot of people who voted for Brexit believed they were people who were coming in from on boats or coming in from countries outside of Europe. And of course, what that's created is a situation where Europeans don't come here anymore long term, but those people outside, we now have to go and get migrants to work here legally from outside the bloc. So the whole thing, it must be a smack in the face for people who thought they were voting for one thing but got something completely different.
No, I mean, in fairness, it's been a complete betrayal of Brexit voters. I mean, you're right. The migration issue was the big issue. Legal and illegal, or irregular as we call it now. And what happened after Brexit? Legal migration massively increased.
Yeah.
I mean, to huge numbers, the equivalent of kind of largest city in this country, completely unsustainable. And on the other hand, the small boats crisis kind of also exploded as well, and because we'd left the EU, actually that prevented us from returning the illegal migrants. And of course, we're in the business, in our business, in politics, we separate the two issues, legal and illegal. But I think most people don't at all. I think you're absolutely right about that, and it was always a problem. The trouble is that, as with everything, there are no simple solutions. So Brexit seemed like a simple solution, and we left, and it didn't work.
Yeah, and this is the thing that is not talked about by a lot of people, to your point, that when we were members of the European Union, we had the right to return anybody that arrived on our shore via a boat or a lorry back to the main body of Europe. We had that right because there was a quota system, and we could set that quota. We could decide. We had so much, in those terms, so much more power than anybody else in the Schengen agreements, where they didn't really. They were told what they were going to take. So now we're in a much weaker position than we were when we were part of the EU, certainly with regards to people coming across on boats.
Well, we have no rights at all to return anybody, which is why Keir Starmer's desperately trying to get this so-called one-in, one-out agreement, which is worse than what we had when we were in the EU. And it's just yet another example. I mean, you could go to free trade agreements and all these other things which were promised, and all of them have fallen short, and that's putting it kindly, of what people had hoped for and what people were expecting.
What are we likely, do you think, what are we likely to get from France? I mean, I'm absolutely amazed that France hasn't told us to take our border back, because at the moment our border is on French land. Again, people don't talk about this, that they've kindly let us have the British border on the other side of the channel. I'm amazed they haven't said, well, look, solve all this issue, you can have your border back.
Yeah, to be fair, the French also have their border over with us, as somebody who makes that crossing quite regularly. But it's it's I'm not convinced. Le Monde are reporting this evening that there is going to be an agreement on returns. I have to say, I was in touch with Downing Street earlier about that, and they weren't very optimistic. They were sort of trying to play that down. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure we're going to get very much at all. I mean, you mentioned defence as well, which is another big part. In fact, migration was a discussion today. Defence is a discussion tomorrow. Macron used some fantastic language about Britain and France shouldering the burden of European defence with America in retreat and all the rest of it. He's absolutely right. But the problem is that Macron doesn't want us, because of Brexit again, to be part of the EU defence procurement.
Exactly.
So, how's that going to work? I mean,
No, I mean, just because Macron really does not like Trump. I mean, we know that.
Yeah.
And he wants to see a world where there's no reliance on America, and it's probably the right thing to do at the moment. But it is interesting, though, to ask us as the other nuclear power, because Germany's already said, look, you two need to get together and give us an umbrella. We all need to be protected by your nuclear weapons, but not to let us be part of the European procurement programme should cause Keir Starmer, it should give him some bargaining power, shouldn't it?
Yes, it should, except he's already given away our fish.
Yeah, that's true.
To try and get back in it, but still hasn't seemed to secure us getting back in it, which, I mean, it just seems slightly odd. I mean, there needs to be, I mean, I know there's still a little bit of ill will, but it's disappearing in the distance. With the whole Brexit thing, there does need to be some give and take on both sides on this, and that includes Macron, I'm afraid, because if you're going to have these grand visions, and I think he's absolutely right, and strangely enough, I think Trump thinks he's absolutely right as well. I mean, Trump wants Britain and France to basically take up the European mantle from America in that respect. Then we've got to work together properly and put aside a lot of this nonsense.
Has Keir Starmer got the backbone for it, though? We've already seen him sort of capitulate, and I'm saying that nicely, there are other words I'd like to use, to Donald Trump in the hope of getting a special deal, which we're not going to get on steel. We haven't really got it on trade. We're in a worse position than we were before. I don't believe there's any special relationship whatsoever. Is Keir Starmer the man? I mean, he might be diplomatic in terms of making people, I don't know, like him, but has he got the backbone to stand up and say, look, we need something else from this money. We need something else from this cost of keeping our nuclear weapons online?
I'm not convinced at the moment. Certainly, if you look at him domestically, he's retreated on everything. The benefits reforms, the winter fuel. It's a real mess. Domestically, the one side, I suppose, he has looked quite good on the international stage, in the sense that other world leaders kind of trust him, rely on him, respect him. But what are these deals he's getting? We still don't know what the India deal's going to look like. We know that basically the US deal was just to kind of lessen the impact of the tariffs, and we're still working through this Brexit reset. As I was saying, we've given away the fish, which is fine, but what have we got in return? So I don't know. I mean, there are still question marks about whether Keir Starmer's going to even survive as Prime Minister, because there's certainly people after him, and that's what a lot of the welfare issue was about. And so he's not in a strong position, and generally Prime Ministers who perform well abroad are in a strong position at home. Both Thatcher and Blair, who were probably the strongest prime ministers of my lifetime, both of them fell away. When their support domestically fell away, their international power also fell away spectacularly.
Yeah, I mean, Macron's got to be very aware of that as well, hasn't he? Because he's probably about as popular as Starmer is here at the moment.
This is a bit of a kind of goodbye victory lap, I think, from Macron.
For both of them, perhaps.
Yes, yeah.
Just before I let you go, David, it would be remiss of me not to mention the latest defection to Reform. Jake Berry leaving the Tories, the ex-chairman, to join Reform. How big a deal is this?
I actually think this is a very big deal. I think founder of the Northern Research Group, who's a really respected campaigner, and I was very dismissive the other day of the David Jones revelations, because I know David very well, and he defected over Christmas, and they dragged him out because things have gone a bit flat for Reform, and he didn't even want the publicity. But Jake is a serious figure, and if people like Jake are switching over, then the Conservative Party really does have a problem. actually, and others may well follow. He's a substantial figure.
And so this is a powerful get, if you like, for Farage and his team.
This is a proper get. And it's not just because he was a senior person. It's just he's somebody who knows how to do stuff. He knows how to campaign. One of Reform's great weaknesses is that they don't understand the grand campaign. Still, they don't understand how important collecting data is and all that is business. And Jake is superb at that sort of thing. And it's a very serious defection. It should worry Kemi Badenoch a lot. And that, talking about leaders who may not be leaders for much longer, this may hasten her departure as well.
We don't have to pick her, don't we? Well, actually, we didn't pick her. we didn't pick her. That was them.
No, we didn't.
David,
definitely not.
Yeah, definitely not. David, it's such a pleasure to meet you and to chat with you. Thank you very much indeed. David Maddox, the political editor at The Independent. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. Coming up at midnight, Gregg Wallace, the cheeky chappie who was on MasterChef and I think some other programmes as well, but I was never a fan. I never watched anything really. I mean, I liked MasterChef, but not for him. But he has declared war on the BBC, saying, I will not go quietly and I will not be cancelled for convenience. There is no way back for this 60-year-old man. The outburst came as the BBC announced that he had been sacked following an inquiry into alleged misconduct. Now, the report comes out tomorrow, but apparently we will not get to see the whole thing, and that's what he is upset. He's upset about that as well. He has since been diagnosed with autism, and he says that the BBC should have protected him because his autism would have made him more susceptible to, I don't know, making mistakes, perhaps saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. But look, 50 people now have come out and complained about his behaviour, some of them quite serious, but he claims that he has been found not guilty of the most egregious of those complaints. So I'm taking his word on that at the moment. But I'm just wondering, for you, what it's like trying to have fun anymore. Do you find it really complicated and really difficult? Is banter something that you just don't do anymore? Now, I'm being really honest with you. I have a bunch of friends that you can say anything. I mean, literally anything. But we know that we're joking, right? We know that we don't mean something. So we know that that meme we might send, which is completely off colour, is not meant to be taken seriously. We know that some of the jokes that make you cringe are, they're not a reflection of the personality of the person who's given. We understand that humour sometimes is about poking fun at people who do believe those terrible things, taking the playbook out of Ricky Gervais, who says, look, these jokes are about joking about the people who think these things are funny more than taking the mick out of the people who are the subject of the joke, if you get my point. But I just wonder if you think that we've lost our sense of humour, or what it's like to try and have banter, whether it's in the shops when you're doing your shopping, or whether it's in the pub when you're having a pint, or and who do you avoid? Because again, Gregg Wallace has said that after a while he avoided young people because he felt they wouldn't understand him. Now, some of the things he did, it has been upheld, like appearing naked at his dressing room door, wearing nothing but a sock, if you get my drift, and thinking that that was funny, and that probably was funny when he was a 12-year-old boy, but I'm not sure if it's funny in the workplace. Should we have more humour, more banter, and our workplace is becoming a bit sterile? I mean, again, the lot that I work with, we all know each other, and I think we're pretty good at banter. We don't really take each other very seriously at all. And I'd be mortified if anybody was offended, but, and they would tell me if they were offended, because there is no hierarchy in this programme, at least. We're a team. So there's none of that goes on. There's no power dynamic. There's no, I better not say anything to Petrie because she's the presenter. There's none of that goes on this programme. But I suspect it goes on in your workplace. So I'd love to hear from you. Maybe you've got yourself into a bit of hot water at your workplace and you really don't quite understand why. Or have you just shut up now? You don't say a word to anybody. Just get your head down, do your job and go home. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. You can message me as well. Put the word talk and then your message to 87222.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie with you until 1 o'clock, and coming up at midnight Amy Fisher will be here, who is the former comms director for the Tories, and I suspect she'll have a thing or two to say about Jake Berry deflecting and going off to reform, so we'll have a chat with her about that. And also our favourite spaceman is going to be here. Andy Lound will be talking us through all things outside of this world. And talking of things outside of this world, Lottie Hume, who's far too beautiful to be part of this world, a senior reporter at The Sun, joins me now. Lottie, hello, how are you?
What an introduction, Petrie. I'm very well now. How are you?
Credit where it's due, darling. Credit where it's due. It's lovely to see you. Now, Gregg Wallace has a suspected heart attack. It may well have been a panic attack, which I suffer from, and they're horrible. I wouldn't wish them on anybody. But 2 days later, coming out of hospital, he was fired, axed completely by the BBC. He must have seen that coming, surely.
Absolutely, and it's just been the biggest story. Obviously, we have to talk about it. It's been dominating headlines this week that ex-MasterChef host Gregg Wallace has kind of declared war on the BBC. He's raged that he won't go quietly. He said, "I will not be cancelled for convenience." And obviously his outburst has come as the BBC, like you said, announced that he'd been sacked following an inquiry into alleged misconduct. So the corporation really turned up the heat by saying another 50 people have made claims about his behaviour across several shows. These include new allegations that he groped a MasterChef worker and pulled his trousers down in front of another one. And Gregg has denied the claims, but sources have said he's considering suing the BBC. And we revealed on Sunday at The Sun that he was actually rushed to hospital in Ashford in Kent with a suspected heart attack. And this obviously, 2 days later, he's obviously sacked from the BBC. He had 2 days of agonizing chest pains. He said to a friend, "The stress of the betrayal brought on my suspected heart attack. It has been hell." But yeah, it's been a huge story that's kind of constantly unfolding at the moment. He said this week, he posted a statement on social media after this came to light, and he said, "After 21 years of loyal service to the BBC, I can't sit in silence while my reputation is further damaged to protect others." He said he'd been exonerated of the most serious allegations in the Silken report, including a separate claim of groping. He said, "I recognise, that some of my humour and language at times was inappropriate. For that, I apologise without reservation, but I was never the caricature now being sold for clicks." So that's what's been going on, Petrie.
Yeah, and he lost his mother to a heart attack earlier on this year, so that must have been quite terrifying for him. It's a really interesting, isn't it? Because there will be people who have some sympathy for Gregg, not if he was groping, not if he was being sexually inappropriate in that way.
Absolutely.
But he is of a generation, perhaps. I mean, I happen to think the 60, you're still young enough to have caught up with everybody else, but you've also got Wyn Evans, the opera singer, who also was saying sexually inappropriate things. He's roughly the same sort of age, and it's just, they think it's just banter, and I keep saying, look, these things were never okay, but we put up with it, and I think people won't put up with it anymore.
Well, absolutely. And I think, when one person's speaking out, it's kind of drawing a lot of other people out as well. And, one of the people who's spoken out said that at the time she feared for her job. She thought that, everyone would take Gregg's side. So I think it is, like you said, it's kind of a case of, as more people are coming out, a lot more people are kind of finding that courage to speak about it. And it isn't okay, and it's...
No, and it is the power dynamic. I mean, there are certainly people, doing a very similar job to me in various places that I've worked, who behave appallingly, and they get away with it because of the position that they hold. And it is nothing short of bullying. It's disgusting behaviour. It's not something I would ever take part in myself, and I never have and never would. But people think it's okay to behave like that if they have a little bit of power.
Totally. And I think, you know what, though, Gregg is making it very obvious he's going to put up a fight. He's not going to lie down and let this happen. I think he's going to really, really kind of come back and And yeah, like it said, he was considering suing the BBC. So I guess we'll have to see what happens going forward.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, because the one thing that he potentially could sue the BBC over is their lack of consideration of his autism. That is potentially a line, and I suspect that'll be the one that he goes down. As for everything else, I don't think he's got a snowball's chance in hell. But you know, that alone might afford him at least a payoff, because he's either way, he's not going back. That's it. He's done. He's finished. That his career on television is done.
Yeah.
I don't see any opportunity for him to come back. Everyone will have moved on anyway. They don't care that much.
I agree.
Michael Madsen's cause of death has been revealed now.
Yes, it has. Michael Madsen, a huge actor of his time, and less than a week after the Reservoir Dogs star was found unresponsive in his home, we've now got a cause of death. So the actor who starred in Kill Bill, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he died from heart failure, it's now been revealed, and heart disease and alcoholism are also believed to have contributed.
Because he wasn't that old, was he?
He wasn't that old. I think he was in his, I want to say his 60s, but I'm not quite
late 50s, early 60s, I think.
Late 50s, early 60s. So very, very young. And, you know, cops have ruled out any foul play or anything like that. And so there won't be an autopsy into his death. And, you know, his agent has now confirmed that he suffered a cardiac arrest. But it's so sad, because what I didn't realize when I was looking into this, you know, he's got 320 acting credits, which is just huge. Like the starring in that many films, and you know, he's been credited for 17 upcoming roles as well. He was in things like Miami Vice, Our Family Honor, Reservoir Dogs as well, which was of course the massive Quentin Tarantino 1992 film. I remember him really well in Free Willy, which was obviously about the killer whales and the orchid.
Yeah. I mean, it's also at the same time we've lost Julian McMahon, who was a great actor as well, and he was young. He was 56, I think, and he died of cancer. It's one of those things when you get to my age, you look at it and you go, what did they die of? And you go, I'm really glad I'm not an alcoholic. Or, oh, good, I haven't got. You know, it's that now. That's what you do when you're my age. You start checking to see what they've died of and if you've got it.
No, Petrie, you don't. And you know what? It has been quite a weird week and a tough week for losses. It does feel like there's been quite a few big stars this week. So
and young, going young. Far too young. Maybe after 11 years for a drama, that's not too young to be killed off. The ITV are killing off one of its most popular dramas.
They are indeed. They're killing off a popular drama, which I have to admit I've never watched. However, I do understand that for a fan, it's really hard when one of your favourite dramas kind of, you know, gets cold, and you know, things like Downton Abbey, when that went, it was really sad. So fans of Grantchester are bitterly disappointed, because the broadcasters now confirmed that the show will be over with its upcoming 11th and final series. Filming for the episodes already kicked off. The air date for its final run is set to be announced in due course. But yeah, creator and writer of Grantchester, Daisy Coulomb, has said, at its heart, Grantchester is a show about the power of friendship and love. We've been so lucky over the last 11 series to experience that on and off screen for over a decade, which is crazy. Cast and crew have met each summer to film, and it's been an absolute joy. She said she's going to really miss it, and I think the fans will too. You know, it's got some die-hard fans, does Grantchester. Have you ever seen it?
No, it's not something that I've watched either. But like you said, it's you see, the trouble is with me is that I have commitment issues, and I can't commit to anything. If I watch the first series and go, oh, that's really good, I like that, and then I probably won't watch it again. Because,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you I kind of keep going a little bit, but I think with something like this 11 series, I would have switched off by now.
Yeah, that is Die Hard.
Yeah.
If you've watched every single one of those series, that's a credit to you. That's staying power. I don't have it. Strictly Come Dancing, another thing that I have never watched and will never watch.
I know that you don't like Strictly, but we'll see you on it one day. Strictly Come Dancing, I say I don't watch loads of things. I mean, this is something I watch year in, year out. we're going to be seeing a big EastEnders star on Strictly, which is great. It's set to star an EastEnders star, which isn't a surprise really, because every year we obviously get someone from EastEnders normally, and actually all really good. They do sensationally well. So the lucky star gearing up for the dance floor is Balvinda Sopal. She plays Walford matriarch Suki Panazar. A source has said that EastEnders has been a happy hunting ground for Strictly bosses since the show first aired a very long time ago. They believe Balvinda will be a huge hit with fans. She's excited by the prospect too. She feels viewers will see a different side to her because, of course, Balvinda on the show, she has bloody battles with her husband Nick. She's been part of some really kind of gritty storylines, so I think it'd be nice to see her in a Strictly setting.
In the glitter and stuff. The thing is that I suspect that a lot of the EastEnders actors are stage school kids. So they will have been taught the basic, you know, dancing and all of that, which is probably why they fit really well with. Whereas me, 2 left feet, there's not a chance, not a chance. Never going to happen. This is an odd story as well. I can't imagine ever doing this. I would never would. I love my boys. A reality star has been slammed after he admitted he had to rehome his pet dog because he's too busy.
Well, you're exactly the same as me. I'm also a dog owner, and I cannot even imagine.
No way.
But
it's a member of the family.
It's a member of the family, and I think that is why, you know, some fans are kind of finding issue with this a little bit. So he's a Made in Chelsea star, but what he said is he's found himself in a bit of hot water because he said he's had to kind of rehome his dog. His dog's named Rocky. He put this big video montage up explaining the situation. He said, things aren't going my way. He talked about how he wanted to give his dog the best life. But he said with TV and content creation, your life is up and down, and Rocky definitely felt that. He said that he was traveling for long periods of time, having to give his dog to other people, put it in dog hotels, and then he eventually made the decision, you know, that he had to rehome him to give him a better life. And, you know, he's asked for no judgment. He said that he understands that, you know, people might come with assumptions. People really have, and people have been so divided. Just to read one comment, it says, you know, I've moved countries and continents 3 times. Dogs are family. I've brought all of them with me, even though it was hard, expensive, or not even convenient. It's so difficult, isn't it? Because he obviously wants to give this dog a better life, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I get that.
But like you said, a dog is a member of the family, so surely you kind of work around the dog? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there were times when I would quite like to have rehomed my son. I mean, I especially when he was 15, I would have really liked to have rehomed him at that point. So maybe it's not such a terrible thing. You're a mum now, you'll get it.
Yeah, I'm starting to get it as year 2 hits. I'm starting to get it.
Yeah. No, wait till year 15. You'll definitely want them rehomed. Lottie, it's always such a lovely thing to see you. Thank you very much for joining me. Lottie Hume there, senior reporter at The Sun. Quick break, and then we're heading to the stars.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you. Just a reminder that Amy Fisher will be with us at the top of the hour and we'll be talking to her about the Sir Jake Berry defecting to Reform from the Tories. He's the ex-party chairman there at the Tories and he's now defected to Reform. So we'll be chatting with her about him in a little bit. Before that though, it's time to catch up on all things space with our favourite spaceman, Andy Lound. How are you?
I'm fine, Petrie. It was an interesting item you were talking about on there. I've met some of your friends. They're absolutely crazy and great fun.
Yeah. And you can say what you like around them and there's no judgment. They're just lovely, lovely people.
It's just fun.
Yeah, exactly that. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that because they are wonderful. Now, let's talk things space. Could NASA's Mars sample return be saved? Because it's looking very dodgy.
It is. The Mars sample return has been entertaining because it's a joint project between NASA and those lovely people at the European Space Agency. And I love the European Space Agency. Some of the work they do is absolutely fantastic. But, and here's the but, the European Space Agency is an organisation of different nations working together. And you generally find that things go way over budget, run late, and there's too many committees. And unfortunately, the sample return mission and the Mars rover has been on the surface collecting the samples and placing them ready for collection, which should have been happening some time ago. It's about $11 billion project, which is, to be fair, too expensive. I know we have our issues with Trump in many areas, but he is a businessman. He understands value for money, and he's looking at it and going, how much? You know, and when are the samples coming back? Oh, well, you know, we're falling behind schedule. It might not be till 2040. 2040? But the Chinese are going to get theirs back in by 2028, 2030 or so. You know, this is ridiculous. And as he's cutting back on everything as well, it looks like the project is gone. And the European Space Agency aren't happy, but there's not much they can do about it. However, Lockheed Martin, the aerospace company, have stepped forward and said, wait a minute, we could do this for $3 billion, which is a bit more realistic of a price for such a mission. They've already got experience putting samples back. They were the ones behind 3 missions to take samples back from asteroids and things. So they already have experience with this, reutilising technology, which they've already done, putting landers on Mars anyway, and just reutilising that sort of technology they've already developed to get some samples back, and that's probably more realistic. And this is one of the problems. I mean, I was at a meeting the other day regarding small modular nuclear reactors, one put in the middle of Birmingham, which is interesting. And the scientists there were talking about billions of pounds which they need to raise. And you find that scientists, God love them, they're brilliant, but they have no sense of money and perspective. Just want loads and loads of money, and they reinvent everything. So this Mars mission, to get the samples back, they redeveloped a whole brand new mission. You think, well, wait a minute, you've already developed systems for landers and things like that. Why can't you just reutilise the technology that you have? And that's what Lockheed Martin is doing. So one thing Trump has done is refocus people to get things done better, and I think that's not a bad thing in many ways, in some cases here. So with a bit of luck, Lockheed Martin may in fact get these samples back to the Earth before Elon Musk goes down and fetches them physically.
Yeah, I was just going to mention Elon Musk there because we know that they've had a catastrophic falling out. Is there anything that SpaceX could do to go and collect those samples, or would it just be too expensive?
No, they're not a robotic.
They can't do it.
That's not what they're doing. But what they could fetch. I mean, to be honest, they are sending. Hopefully, if SpaceX, if the big rocket starts to work, because they're trying to develop it at the moment. In technically speaking, the first one that's going to land on the surface will actually have a physical robot on board, which will go out and will be testing the atmosphere for humans to visit it. In theory, when they actually send humans to Mars, they could physically go over and physically fetch the samples.
Yeah.
And the timeline that ESA was looking at, he would actually get there first at this rate and bring them back.
Wow.
So in that sense, you would have humans bringing them back rather than robots bringing them back. So yes, in that sense, because the falling out is quite an interesting one, and how much of an effect that's going to have on SpaceX now really is a big issue at the moment.
Yeah, whether he loses those contracts, those government contracts, or even the government.
Yeah, it's quite a serious issue that's bubbling up at the moment.
Yeah.
Again, it shows that unfortunately Trump is interesting in some ways. but is in a nightmare of others because he can simply lose his temper and throw the teddy bear at the pram, and all hell breaks loose.
And damn the consequences, really,
yes,
actually.
You can't really afford that as a president. I know Richard Nixon, it was thought, had that issue of doing that, but Richard Nixon did it controlled deliberately to make people think he was losing his temper. Throwing it out. It was actually a strategy, whereas I think sometimes with Trump he really just does lose his temper.
Yeah. What is this about Atlas, the comet C/2025N1? It's not very sexy code name. Will it strike us? Will it hit us?
No. It's going to be a long way for us. What's exciting about this is the third interstellar.
So this has come from another universe.
Come from another part of the galaxy.
Right.
It's not from our solar system. That's the beauty part.
Right.
And it's the third one that's been clearly identified. The second comet, which has come from outside of our system, which has been identified, Umea was probably an asteroid which came in. We then had another object which came through, and that was seen to be a comet. But this one is a big object. This is quite large, and its speed is, I think, it's something like 156,000 miles per hour. It's a phenomenally speedy vehicle, and it's in a parabolic orbit, and therefore normally you have these elliptical orbits which comets have, which go around the sun like this. This one is going to fly in, curve around the sun, and just disappear out of our solar system. And it's entered the solar system from outside. This is very exciting.
How do we know that it's entered from outside?
It's the speed and its angle of attack as it's flying through the solar system tells us, because we can trace back its orbit and realise it's not in an orbit at all. It's just flown into the solar system. So that's quite an exciting discovery.
But we don't know what from outside of our own solar system.
We don't know exactly where it actually came from at all. It's been ejected from another solar system in some shape or form, and that's what makes it interesting.
Makes my head explode, all this.
What's fascinating about this is, and this is an argument I put forward years and years ago, along with other people saying it, we need to have a set of space probes checked out and ready, sitting in a hangar somewhere, that something like this comes, we can get something to launch towards it. But we don't have that, unfortunately, because we would love to get close to this. Even possible take a sample of it, because if we could sample material...
That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Then you'd know more about the other solar systems.
Exactly, and whether or not what chemicals come from other solar systems, because it is quite possible that a lot of the material that we have here on Earth, including the building blocks of life itself, may have originated somewhere out there in another solar system and came in. Can you imagine that? And that would be really exciting. So we call it panspermia, where you've got microorganisms being delivered to planets from outside the system. And a lot of people think that is probably more likely the way life expands throughout the universe itself, maybe through travelling on comets and asteroids. So it'd be ideal to get a look at it. It's going to miss the Earth by an awful long way, so it's not even getting close. It's not getting that close to the sun either, really. But the fact it's flying through the solar system as a discovery is really exciting. I'm sorry, people won't be able to get to see it with the naked eye or anything like that. This is just an object to be seen by the very largest telescopes.
So it's literally like something just going across our screen, if you like, and then it will disappear. It will go into another solar system when it disappears?
It'll leave us and travel through space for tens of thousands, if not millions of years, and eventually come close perhaps to another star where it'll be affected by that star and fly through their system, and so on, until it ever gets captured. But the speed it's travelling at is going to be very hard to get captured by any object unless it goes close. So this is a wanderer through space itself, which I think is really exciting. And these are the three. We've spotted three so far, which suggests, therefore, if we spotted three, there's likely to be millions of objects which come from outside, which pass through our solar system all the time, and we don't always get to spot them.
I mean, it literally just mind-blowing, isn't it? The idea that there's something outside of us, and we don't know what it is, and how far. Oh, no, I can't. You know, I can't cope with infinity. That just won't compute in my head.
Oh.
The Mars rover. Talk to me about that. Again, another budget issue.
Yeah, and the budget issue from NASA, Trump's thing, it hasn't all been settled yet, obviously. But one of the issues could go is Europe's ExoMars rover. Oh, the ExoMars rover. I've been talking about this since 2003. The ExoMars rover. It's a generational issue. They were planning this fantastic rover with fantastic instruments on board, and they really are good instruments, much of it designed and developed in the UK, so it's really brilliant, to go onto Mars, to drill deep underground, get samples, do wonderful tests for possible microbes and do all sorts of things. Named the Rosalind Franklin rover after the chemist who experimented with analysis crystallography on DNA, which was really brilliant. And then, of course, there were budget cuts, there were delays developing the technology. They worked with NASA. Then wonderful President Obama, I'm sorry, never liked Obama. Obama cut the budget from NASA. Everyone's talking about Trump's cut. They're forgetting Obama's big cuts on NASA meant that they had to find somewhere else. Russia stepped in and said, oh, we'll give you equipment, we'll give you a launcher, we'll do this. Oh, brilliant. So they got working with Russia with their experience. So they got there. Then what happened? Russia invades Ukraine. Not allowed to work with Russia anymore. Yeah. So the project got put back. NASA suddenly stepped in and said, well, OK, we'll help you out then. Great, we've stepped in. So we might get a launch in 2028. Now Trump's budget cuts means that NASA can't afford to help them, and it looks like it may be shelved again. And this poor rover, which is developed, is now ridiculously late. But I did mention at the beginning, at the top of the show, ESA, always late, always over budget. And this sadly looks like this rover may not make it. And if it does get a chance to launch, because of the launch schedules and the position of Earth and Mars, it might not even go to the place they wanted to go to in the first place on Mars.
So explain to me, we say the word rover. Is it just literally a vehicle that goes on the planet's surface? Yes,
it's a robotic vehicle. It's a 6-wheel vehicle, and it has mounted...
What sort of size?
About the size of an estate car. So it's
okay, quite big.
They're reasonably big pieces of kit, this. And it has a power pack, nuclear power pack on board, which is America is supplying, because Europe doesn't have that technology for that, unfortunately. But there you go. Cameras, mechanical arms, sensors, which comes on an arm with a rotating piece on the top with different types of sensors on to sense the atmosphere, a drill to drill into the ground.
Wow.
So radio-controlled vehicle, really, but it's partly controlled from Earth, partly controlled on board by the onboard computer, which, because of the time delay getting signals to it, it has to think for itself to a certain degree. It doesn't drive very fast, by the way. These things move very, very, very slowly as they're going over particular areas. But over a period of a few years, as we've seen with Perseverance rover, they can do quite a clip over the surface, quite a few kilometres over the surface.
What a shame. It'll get there eventually. It's a bit like being stuck on the M25. We'll get there eventually. It's good to talk to you, Andy. Thank you very much indeed. Andy Lound, then, our space expert. Right, coming up, Amy Fisher will be here taking us through the papers.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you and with me, Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms for the Conservative Party. Nice to see you again.
Hello, nice to see you.
Before we get into all of this, Gregg Wallace, the MasterChef cheeky chappy, now been sacked.
Yeah.
I just want to know from you, as Director of Comms, right, did you ever have to talk to people about their behaviour and banter and things like that, or was that not your remit?
Oh no, absolutely, and it did go from every scale of, you know, what one might be talking about in terms of banter, because obviously Anne Rayner is thinking about, you know, banning banter in the workplace and having snoopers looking at all of that, and there were some clear cases where I guess we'd call them snowflakes now. So there were some cases it was just a bit like someone was just literally having a bit of a laugh with you. They're having a bit of a tease. They certainly don't mean any harm, but then yeah, it really was a sliding scale right up to some somewhat more serious things. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard, or anyone's ever mentioned to you, the kind of infamous, you know, Westminster elevator list.
No.
Well, no, it's just it's basically a sort of
who not to get caught in an elevator with. Oh, crikey!
Really? It is sort of it's a bit, you know, a bit apocryphal, but yeah, it's basically a sort of there'd be the kind of nudge and the wink. Gosh, not to mix metaphors, given we're talking about this, I don't know, but you know, if you're a woman starting out in Westminster as I was, let's just go for a couple of decades ago without putting too finer points in it, you know, there are definitely people who've been working there before you who would say,
don't get stuck.
Just look out for that person, don't get in the, you know, metaphorical the Palace of Westminster lifts, which in and of themselves are sort of rather tiny and prone to breaking down.
Great.
So there certainly was a sort of informal kind of byword amongst, you know, certainly it was, you know, women at the time, as I say, when I was starting out as a teeny tiny baby press officer in opposition, and that was at the most serious end, and yeah, a whole sliding scale in the middle of stuff, which clearly was just like maybe.
Because it is, Westminster is still very much a boys' club, right?
Yes, it is.
It really is.
Oh, I've had some of the most extraordinary things said to me, which I certainly wouldn't put in the high-end bracket of I actually feel threatened. This is not. This is wrong. There is a kind of in-between bit of this is certainly not right, but I am going to laugh it off. Like I once had a. And of course, I'm not going to say names, but I once had a junior minister say to me, when I was a special advisor, Ms. Fisher, why are you wearing trousers and depriving us of the sight of your lovely legs?
Yeah, that was never appropriate, right?
It's not appropriate, but I didn't feel. But it was not appropriate. It was very misguided.
Heinous,
in fact, in some weird way, he probably meant it as like as a compliment. You see, that was the thing. I mean,
but is it these older again?
And he was an older. He was an older
man,
chap,
who might think that is I'm paying.
As I say, I'm sure he in his mind thought it was a compliment. Another similar one was like, you know, and you smiling to make yourself look more intelligent. Sorry, you frowning to make yourself look more intelligent. You've got such a lovely smile. We wish we could see more of that. As I say, it's like you know, you don't go into work as a professional woman or professional anybody expecting to get that. But I didn't think it was threatening. It was misguided, kind of at best an ill-judged attempt. It's a compliment, at worst something anachronistic, another, era sort of 30
years past. But is there now such a generation gap? Because, I mean, when I was the only female reporter in the first and only at the time, female reporter in a newsroom, you either met them language for language, or you ran away crying. And I had brothers, and used to have fights with them, physical ones. So I mean, I wasn't afraid of boys or men. Yeah. But for me, my generation, if you can't beat them, join them. And so you'd have to become a little bit more blokey in your humour, and a little
possibly
bit
your
more,
language got a little bit more robust, shall we say?
Yeah, I swear like a tree. I'm very proud of it.
All of that kind of thing, and my experience has been the same, and certainly the examples I've given, as I've said, I didn't think they were threatening. They were inappropriate and not what I wanted as a professional woman. But I don't think there was anything more or less to them than that. And unfortunately, as I'm sure perhaps you have, or people listening, there have been occasions where I have been on the receiving end of behaviour which was clearly
absolutely
of a different degree and different category, and actually did make me feel very upset, very threatened. It was predatory towards me. So look, I really have seen, both as an individual and in my professional role as a former director of communications, I really have seen the whole gamut. Thankfully in Westminster, I think I would say 95% is in the sort of, it is just banter, it may not be appropriate, but actually to a certain extent give as good as you get. There's nothing threatening in it. But as I suspect with any workplace, there is 5% that goes beyond the pale. In fact, actually, ironically, the worst examples of professional work-based behaviour I ever had were not in Westminster. They were in some very well thought of private companies. Actually in Westminster, there's a lot of shtick, there is a lot of banter. There's a couple of examples of I've sort of given it. Maybe I was just very lucky, but I think of the 20 odd years in Westminster, I actually can't think of a single occasion where I ever truly felt, oh my God,
but do you think the younger
people
coming through are less robust, or are they less prepared to accept what we accepted?
I honestly think it's a mixture of the two. To your point about people coming through, are they less robust? I certainly think, perhaps if in your young 20s now and sort of getting your first job, you've basically been locked up at home for the last 4 or 5 years. I just think there's a whole weird thing that sort of COVID has done to, if you were sort of 15, 16, maybe doing your GCSEs, you then had those weird 2-3 years. Now you're actually trying to find your first real job or have fun. I just think you just don't know how to necessarily deal with things, and I'm sort of somewhat scared of talking to people, let alone dealing with a sort of friendly, jovial, I'm slightly teasing you, I'm having a little bit of a sort of pinch and a poke, but I don't mean anything by it. I just think perhaps if you're coming into your first job placement now as an early 20-something, you just don't have the life don't have the life experience to do it, which I think is the larger
It must
cost
be an HR person's nightmare. But you, as being head of comms for that, were there any times where somebody came to you and said, look, I've really messed up, this is going to hit the papers, how do we deal with this?
Yes. Yes, and there is the full stop.
There is the full story. So you've had to deal with the press over something inappropriate.
Very, very inappropriate. To the point that sort of high-end lawyers and all sorts were getting involved. So I'm not just sort of being dull by not saying more.
I know. I'm teasing you. I know.
But yes, as I say, I really then have seen the whole gamut of come on, to then actually. Sometimes some of the behaviour that I was having to deal with was not the sort of predatory, necessarily sexual related stuff. It was actually bullying, which has been a kind of age-old issue of how sometimes MPs can treat their staff, because Westminster has this kind of weird setup where if you're a parliamentary researcher, and often that is your first job, by the way, like parliamentary researchers are often in their, you know, ambitious young people in their early 20s, and you have a sort of slightly strange relationship in terms of your employment contract, because you're sort of employed directly by them, and there sort of isn't an HR department to go to, and then should it sort of be the House of Commons, or should it be your political party? So yeah, there are definitely, in terms of that, like a few cases of the kind of mistreatment, allegations of mistreatment by MPs, which were, I don't want to say commonplace, but they were not unfamiliar in terms of then when, as I say, the political party, you know, the Conservative Party, would get involved in what, from a purist legal point of view, was essentially a contractual dispute between the MP and their staffer. And as I say, like, I wouldn't want to say it was commonplace, but they were not unusual, that there would be difficulties and fallings out there. And yes, unfortunately, there was a few of the very sort of high-end, very grot, very nasty things, but the vast majority at the level of, like, Miss Fisher, why are you wearing trousers and depriving us of the sight of your beautiful legs?
It's so creepy.
It's creepy, but do you think?
I get it.
I remember when it was said to me, like, I laughed. Yeah. Not a girlish giggle of like, oh, thank you for that compliment, but like a laugh of like, sorry, what?
Yeah. Sorry, what did you say? Look, there's certainly I think in every business there's certainly bullying, especially when especially where egos are involved, right?
And there's very small offices, and you know, hours are weird in Westminster. They're slightly less weird, but then and again, it's slightly less bad. But you know, the kind of boozing. You know, if you're waiting for a late night vote, the bars with the cheap alcohol, and you're all sort of stuck in, you know, all sort of stuck in the same place. And you know, by nature of the business, it's politics, so people have high emotions about it. I mean, the whole thing has been, without getting all Guy Fawkes in, you know, a powder keg for some of this stuff. As I say, like sharing some of these physically small
tiny
offices, as in, like, you know, an MP and their staffer might be closer than you and I are here in this studio for then, you know, maybe 10, 12 hours at a time, as I say, voting on things where, you know, tensions can be high, adding a few cheap pints, and you know, look, it's not
whiskey in the top drawer.
It's not that difficult to see where it can go awry.
I just wonder if banter is I think an important part of your work life, and it would be such a shame if everything was to be made so clinical.
Yeah.
I mean, Angela Rayner was talking about making it so you couldn't have banter in the pub because that's somebody's workplace. I mean, that's just ridiculous, right?
But also the thing, I mean, you spoke about sort of having brothers and whatnot, and I guess, as I say, like having worked in, you know...
I worked with the military for 9 years.
Okay, then that, you know, then that as well. Like
the sense of humour there is...
Yeah, but I always sort of find it that, you know, when your sort of bloke mates start to take the piss out of you and then are treating you literally as one of your own, that's sort of... It's a nice... You're literally one of them. They're not seeing you as kind of any different or like, oh, it's a woman, we can't quite do the same thing. Is when you get that level of, you know, sometimes filthy language, sometimes, well, a lot of filthy language, actually, who am I kidding? But it's when you are just one of them and no one's kind of trying to mind their P's and Q's.
No, that's where I'm at my most comfortable.
Different. Yes,
that's where I'm at my most comfortable.
And I take it as sort of, not almost, I take it as a compliment when you are just like, they're just in it, not seen as anything different, doing the same job.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's one of the lads, so to speak. Although, you know, they're lucky to have us there. Let's talk now about if a MP, or not even an MP, a member of the Tory party, while you were Director of Comms, decided to defect.
What could you possibly be referring to?
I mean, obviously, this is Jake Berry. So Jake Berry is defected to Reform. He says that the Reform Party is a last chance to pull Britain back from decline, and he blasts his old party for abandoning the British people and Labour for lacking direction or backbone. As Director of Comms at one point, how would you have handled this? Would you have been told before this was released? Would you have known?
I'm guessing as courtesy that Sir Jake would probably have texted a few other senior people that he'd worked with, right? Because that's just common courtesy. Above and beyond that, I don't expect CCHQ would have particularly had any notice. As far as I've seen, they've put out a sort of pretty gracious statement, which is exactly the one that I would have in their position, which is, you know, look, everybody's making their own decisions, and obviously would always, you know, always wish him well. I mean, I think it's, I mean, I wasn't particularly surprised. I mean, he's always been somewhat more on the right of the party. He obviously very much tied himself in with Boris Johnson and then Liz Truss, and then obviously, you know, resigned with Rishi Sunak. So he's always sort of somewhat seen to himself as, you know, a go-getter, a doer on the right. There is also the wider political context to this, which is in last year, 2024 general election, he lost his seat by some 6,000 votes, Rochdale and Darwen. So he may be he may be well thinking to himself, well, hang on a second, my career in the Conservative Party clearly isn't going anywhere. Now, I mean, he's sort of rather peaked at being chairman for a few months, I think it was back in sort of 2022, 23. So, you know, there, as ever in politics, there will be a personal calculation that is being made, which is what I want to do and what I believe myself capable of doing in the Conservative Party is not an option anymore. I am not one of the 121 MPs, the rump of the party that got elected last year. So look, maybe I'll go and see what I can do with these guys.
I mean, I was talking to David Maddox earlier, and he was saying that this is actually quite a big win for reform.
Sure, I'm not going to
get him, because he is seen as that go-getter, that he does understand
and he's young
politics
and all this kind of thing. And yes, it is the second defection this week. Obviously, there was David Jones, former Secretary of State for Wales. So look, I'm not. If I sound like I'm being dismissive or pejorative, neither of those things are meant, and I'm certainly not going to pretend that the threat from reform is really, really significant. I mean, there was polling out over the weekend, which, if I recall correctly, said they will be the largest party in a hung parliament. I mean, this is where we are. So I'm not trying to downplay that. All I'm saying is, in terms of grandees of the Conservative Party, I'm just not necessarily sure Jake Berry would be top tier. I don't think I'm being mean by saying that, and again, that's not being pejorative about his personal achievements. And just for me, I think there is something that, as your politics, both personal and in terms of your political career trajectory evolves, yes, you may change, and you may sometimes find, you know, the tectonic plates have shifted a little, and sometimes you're a bit more over here and a bit more over there. And that's fine. You shouldn't have to constrain yourself within some predetermined tramlines. But I do think taking, quote, blasts at your former party
so soon as well,
and at your former colleagues so soon, that just sticks it in my craw for me in terms of
I felt that was a little early
a way I would think it was proper to behave. So I think
we've got actually the speech that he made. So let's have a little look and listen to this.
Britain is broken. We literally live in a country where you cannot walk down the street with a phone in your hand. We have taxes that are so sky high, the brightest and best are leaving our country in droves, while at the same time a benefit system that is bringing the world's poor to our shores with no control. If you literally want to design a system to destroy a country, you would struggle to do better. And I know who broke it, because I was there. For 30 years I supported the Conservative Party. For 14 years I was one of their MPs, sitting at that cabinet table twice. And I want to tell you today, my friends, that I have come to a decision. The old parties do not have what it takes to transform our country, to build a Britain we can believe in again. And that's why I've decided to join the Reform Party. It is only Reform and Nigel Farage who can deliver a Britain that we are proud of again. Nigel Farage has always stuck by his principles. Even when it was unpopular, he campaigned for Brexit. We know we can trust him. He doesn't change his views when the political weather changes. And because you know you can trust him, I can trust him too. And that's why I'm going to spend every day campaigning to ensure that Nigel Farage and Reform form the next government of this great United Kingdom.
And that is a Sun exclusive. So if you do want more information on Jake Berry, Sir Jake Berry, and all of that stuff, then you can find that in the Sun. It's a Sun exclusive.
Well, look, that was quite some line. I must just really pick on that where he said, slightly paraphrase, yes, I know how all messed up it is because I was there for 14 years. It's like, do you not understand the internal incoherence in that?
Yes.
Because on the
you
one
were part
hand,
of the decline.
Yes,
yeah.
And so you should at least apologise for that bit in some way before you then on to go, aha, but this is why I'm now going off to Reform. I mean, look, this is what I mean about, you know, everybody, personally and professionally, may wish to change their minds and switch parties, you know, all of this kind of thing. But there are ways and a spirit in which to do it, and the spirit in which it has been done by Sir Jake Berry is one that I don't think is or should be becoming of a senior politician if that is who he's claiming to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's setting fire to the bridge as you walk across it, isn't it? Really, but nonetheless, it is again. I mean, look at the way he speaks. He speaks really well.
So it's the whole you wanna.
Yeah.
It's the sort of Tony Blair glottal stop type thing that's now turned into. Oh,
this is the way people communicate now. Right, we're going to take a very quick break, but we will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms for the Conservative Party. Let's have a look at the Washington Post. The floods in Texas goes from worse to worse, doesn't it? 109 now confirmed dead, but at least 161 still missing in the Texas floods. And also this is not accounting the cost of all the animal lives lost and all the properties that have been destroyed. I mean, this is an absolute disaster.
Well, it's just sort of one of these stories that when I heard the headline, I sort of was pushing around, sort of doing something else entirely, and I was, because at that point the death toll was originally sort of about 50, 60, and I sort of wait, what? Floods where?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And then, as you say, I mean, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, maybe there will be some miracles, but people missing.
It's Thursday night, Friday morning. It's unlikely.
It just doesn't look very good, and quite literally for something that just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as though there'd been kind of any agency failing, or it just.
Well, they don't know, do they? Because the Trump has removed the use of satellite feeds for security purposes from the weather.
Yes, you're right. Maybe there's a bit more nuance in that. But my point is, it was a flash flood that suddenly appeared, and within minutes. So no, I didn't mean to imply that there weren't things which perhaps could have helped avoided or
all the deaths,
mitigated it. But in terms of it being a thing that anybody expected to sort of happen, I
mean, I can't get over the statistic that in 2 hours the water level rose by 8 metres, 26 feet.
It's when you see the footage,
you can't even. I mean, I always try and measure it. I'm 5 foot, so it's quite a lot of me's on top of each other. And that is just the thought of that body of water.
Speed of it. The speed when you see the footage, it looks like some weird AI.
It really does. It looks like it's
Hollywood.
Yes. It's the awful. I mean, just the thought of it, and there's of course there's those children as well. 5 children are still missing, and a counsellor from, and they're having to be identified by DNA, which is really so they're not able to tell the parents until they've done DNA checks on these children that have been found. This is an interesting story. Marco Rubio, who always looks a little bit awkward, but there was an imposter who, pretending to be the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, contacted foreign ministers, a US governor, and a member of Congress by sending them voice and text messages that mimicked Rubio's voice and writing style using artificial intelligence-powered software. I mean, this is really worrying, right?
Yeah, but come on. This is actually nothing new. So yes, okay, this was using the kind of AI, but you must remember even relatively recent. Well, I say relatively recent, but like somebody managed to get through the number 10 switchboard.
That's true.
Pretending to speak to Dave, and actually David Cameron picked up his phone, and the number of phone maybe I shouldn't be admitting this. The number of phone numbers I had from, as I say, being a teeny tiny press officer in CCHQ in opposition in like 2002, the phone numbers of people who then became very senior, not necessarily all in fact British politicians, and
we hold on to our phone numbers forever.
No, we totally do. The number of people, I just remember, well look, I'm just going to say I actually have another friend called Boris, but let's just say I once phoned the wrong Boris and very much got through to the wrong one inadvertently, in a way that, given his position at the time, I certainly shouldn't have been able to. So the fact, and as I say, there's been, I think Tony Blair had it as well, didn't he, where he got really pranked by people calling through. So look, this is just using AI, but it's essentially...
But in a way, because it's so easy to mimic somebody's voice now, as long as you've been, I mean, you're doomed, I'm doomed, because if you've done any broadcasting at all, you only need, I think, something like 29 seconds of somebody's voice to get their voice pattern and then to be able to use AI to mimic it. That actually, you could have somebody mimicking Putin and getting through to Donald Trump.
Well, this is for sure.
And saying, listen, Trumpy, my love, or however he talks to him.
It's gone down a wormhole I don't think we want to
darling.
particularly think about.
Vladivostok, darling, or whatever he says to Trump. I mean, this is quite...
No, it is,
and serious if people can actually get through to using the voice of Marco Rubio to say whatever.
No, so it's at that level. If it were to be, politician to politician, there have been these various videos going around of AI generated. That Barack Obama saying, support this person in this campaign. Again, that's at the kind of very geopolitical level. There are then like the deep fakes of kind of ordinary women's faces being superimposed onto sort of porn, revenge porn type of stuff. No, so I agree. I didn't mean to make light of it, because at every level, this ability, either in this case it's AI voice technology or sort of the AI full image graphic generation is truly terrifying, because I fear we have come, as in not coming to, we have come to a point where in some cases it is going to be impossible to literally know what is true and what is false.
I agree, and that in itself is really very, very scary, because we facts more than ever are important in this day and age. And finally, I saw Chrissy Noem, who I think is an absolutely loathsome creature who apparently shot a puppy in the face, which is Nice. I don't know why, but that's Chrissy Nome, the Homeland Security Secretary, announced today to great fanfare that you no longer have to take your shoes off when you fly.
Well, she's quite a strange character, though, isn't she?
She's a cosplay queen. Yeah, she likes to dress up.
I was wondering how I was going to phrase that, because when I saw...
She likes dressing up in military stuff.
With all of that, and when she went on this visit with Trump last week, where was it? And she had this really inappropriate, like, sleeveless...
Yeah.
You know, she's a senior politician, and she's this very inappropriate, sleeveless, very fitted top, and then kind of the extensions, and then some kind of, like, MAGA cap with Donald Trump. And I actually wrote a message to a friend going like, how much do you know about this woman? Because she really looks like she's got some fantasies about Trump that she's literally like playing out when she
possibly
sort of goes out.
Very odd, very
strange.
and very clearly not qualified for the job.
No.
But yeah, I mean, big fanfare, big crowd. They like making these announcements, big crowds behind them, big crowds of people. And she went, "This is great news, big fanfare. You don't have to take your shoes off anymore." It's like, oh. Okay.
Well, I think it was Birmingham Airport this week as well said the limit has gone up from like 100
to 200 mils.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can. I mean, it's like, great. Yeah, not something we really need a big fanfare over, but congratulations, America, you don't have to take your shoes off. Not that I would be flying in an American plane right now anyway. Let's take a quick break. Come back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and I'm Petrie, and she is Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms at the Tory Party. At the Sun newspaper, of course, we said that the ex-Tory chief joins Farage. That's Sir Jake Berry. We've talked through that. And the other big story, of course, a kick in the galls.
Well, you've got to love the Sun. When the Sun does it well,
when they do it well, they do it well. You've got to give them credit for that. France to take back just 50 migrants a week in PM deal. France will take back only 50 dinghy migrants. I don't know where they got that number from, but under a new returns deal, a fraction of the huge numbers that are actually crossing. This is very difficult. I was talking about this earlier for Macron, because he's got Marine Le Pen's party nipping at his heels. A lot of the people in France are very upset with the numbers of migrants that are there. If he stops them in France or takes them back, there's going to be a lot of very unhappy French people who already don't like him.
Well, that's the internal politics. He's also got Spain, Italy, etc. also going, well, hang on, if you accept them back to France, they're not going to stay to France.
Yeah, exactly.
So look, he is on a bit of a sticky wicket. I mean, I don't quite know where the Sun got this, although we've enjoyed the headline. I don't quite understand where they got the headline from, because it certainly sort of wasn't mentioned in the readout that obviously the PM and Macron had their meeting today after PMQs. The readout of the meeting was quite kind of like, hey, good vibes.
Yeah,
everyone's
but
happy,
no detail.
We're all working together. Also, Macron doing a lot of winking this week.
A lot of winking. He was winking at Princess Kate, wasn't he?
Yes, I don't mind, but that I sort of understand, because she's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
I sort of...
Still, it's a bit creepy.
But it's a little bit... It's been a lot of winking, a lot of, like, good vibes only, no real detail, as in, what might actually happen. But yes, it is the third day of the state visit tomorrow, so goodness knows what is going to be pulled out of the bag then. And in the meantime, we're all just meant to be very, very happy that the Bayeux Tapestry is coming here for a bit, for as long as I can, as far as I can make out, is basically not really to do with any kind of great Anglo-French relations.
No, I think it was due here anyway.
Also, then the museum, where it usually is in France, is being closed for 6 months to be restored.
Yeah.
I mean, convenient timing.
They just want us to look after it, babysit.
Yes, this is what I mean.
I remember going to France and seeing the Bayeux Tapestry when I was at school.
Yes, I did.
We had to draw pictures and...
It's a sort of rite of passage.
Yeah, I think that's what we all had to do, didn't we? It's a bit, I thought it was a particularly ugly thing, but there you go. What do I know? The Times newspaper for Thursday, there's the bromance there. Sakia and Victoria Starmer. We don't really see her very often, do we?
No.
And President Macron and his wife Brigitte. I mean, so lots being talked about. He has got his arm around her, but there's lots been talked about since she pushed him in the face and then didn't take his hand.
There was a sort of slap in Hanoi,
yes.
or the slap that wasn't a slap, but the photos looked pretty clear. And then when she was coming down the steps a couple of days ago, he was very sort of clearly did not want to take his hand. But then I saw a couple of hours ago that it could be that she's in sort of not a good way, because her older sister is passed away, and that,
oh gosh,
and so she's ended up coming on this visit to sort of do her kind of her duty, but actually there's something else going on in her personal life which has understandably made her just be right, I'm here, I'm trying to get on and do my duty, but I'm upset.
I still can't quite get over the fact that she was his teacher.
40, had 3 children, one of her sons was in his class.
I can't. It's very French.
It's very French.
It's very French.
It's very French, and they have been married for what, 2018?
Yeah.
I mean, they have been married a long time, and she's also had these like ghastly rumours about her. So again, that may have been adding apparently why she seemed a bit frosty. As there's literally going to be.
Is there rumours that she's a man?
There's a court case starting whereby 4 men are up on charges of cyber bullying for basically accusing her of being a paedophile, accusing her of being, well, a couple of women this year have already had to pay charges to some thousands of euros for saying that she was born a man, and actually all of that turned out to be that they'd mistaken the people spreading the rumours had mixed up her birth certificate with her brother's. I mean, it was that. I mean, it was that basic. God. So she's already had that settled. Obviously,
that's
grim.
Embarrassing.
Yeah,
isn't it?
It's just embarrassingly rubbish. Like if you're going to troll people, don't troll people, by the way, but just like that
at
was
least
just
get your facts
so
straight.
Completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so there is this trial starting.
Yeah, I was told one time for working with my husband at the BBC because we both had the same surname. It was my brother.
Yeah.
And we didn't even work in the same area.
It was that level of like, oh come on.
Yeah. Oh, look at her, she's working with her husband.
Yeah.
No, it's disgusting. Actually made me feel sick. My brother. I don't know. It's look, they look very friendly there, but let's hope something actually comes out of it. The sidebar here on the Times: 25 grand income from benefits beats many in full-time jobs. Ministers have offered Labour rebels fresh concessions on welfare analysis after analysis shows that people on sickness benefits take home more than a minimum wage worker. I thought this had been corrected already. Do you remember that time when people were getting housing benefits for mansions and
all of it? Yeah,
all of that, and that was supposed to be the point.
And the one thing that all political parties agreed on is that work should always pay.
Well, if you get 25 grand for staying at home,
well, I mean,
I'd be happy with that.
Well, it's a nonsense, right? Like, because also the thing about yes, people should work, as in to put something, into the system, but also there are so many other associated benefits with going out to work in terms of, developing relationships and all these kind of things we were talking about earlier about how young people are finding it difficult. Actually, going out to work and having a sense of achievement and motivation and purpose brings these other associated sort of personal gains, you know, for the individual and society. So if this is in any way true, which sadly I believe it probably is, because let's be honest, I don't think they've quite gone their sums right over welfare stuff in the last 10 days, have they?
No, they really haven't. They've muffed that up completely. But they are saying here claimants who also get a disabled child and carers allowance would have an income of £37,000. Mind you, if you have got a disabled child and you're a carer for that disabled child.
Yeah, but it's not like profit income, right? They're not just sitting there on the...
Yeah, exactly. They're not watching This Morning or whatever it is. That...
but no, I mean, it does... Look, they really have messed up any position.
They've got to get it right, because if people think, well, you know, if I go out to work, I'm going to be earning 22 grand a year. If I stay at home, I'm getting 25 grand a year. It's no brains, is it? It's not even a question. The FT, EU says strikes and wildfires could lead to the worst ever airline delays this summer. So if people are still planning on going on holidays this summer, then just be very, very careful. A couple of other things. Yaccarino to leave top role. I don't know this woman. Linda Yaccarino, pictured in Las Vegas in January, has quit her role as chief executive of X 2 years after Elon Musk hired her to run the social media platform that he took private.
I'm not particularly familiar with her either. I think it's just the fact that it seemed to have come so well out of... There haven't been any rumours, no burblings, and then she's just literally come on and said, yeah, right, thanks for the opportunity, but I'm off. So that's what sort of... I mean, who knows what working with Elon Musk must be like.
Must be hell on legs. And Nvidia to become the first $4 trillion company. That sounds like a lot. I think I could live on that. The iPaper, Labour will target the rich, but he won't call it a wealth tax. Rachel Reeves is expected to target new taxes and revenue-raising efforts at the wealthy, so she can appease restless Labour. I mean, this is what Labour is meant to do, isn't it?
Although they've been saying for so long they wouldn't do it. So
yes, but we know that when they say they won't do something, that means that they will do something.
Yeah. So we know that. So look, accepting both of those things, I think as far as I can make out, there's sort of there's a plan that seems to be endorsed by Lord Kinnock. Like
it's bound to be endorsed by Kinnock,
but it's
right?
impossible to find any of the sums about it. It's sort of predicting that it will raise however many billion, but there's absolutely no indication of kind of the working mechanism in it. So that's kind of one problem. Always show you're working. And then why don't you think anywhere that has ever tried a wealth tax? You know, Spain, it hasn't worked in Spain. France tried it. They've actually had to sort of scrap one version of it and are now trying to bring in another. So sort of... I don't think I'd be...
I think they're missing the point here. You don't tax the wealthy individuals, you tax the wealthy companies and the corporations. That's what we all want to see. We want to see the Amazons.
But you see, that's more difficult, though.
I know, but that's what we should be doing. I mean, that's what Labour should be. Labour should say, look, we're not going to tax aspiration, we're not going to tax your income, but what we need to do is to make sure that these corporations pay their fair share of tax, that they don't get to negotiate with the Inland Revenue. You get your bill, and by the way, we're going to charge a sales tax in the country that you sell the item, so you can't get away with it by saying the cup was made in Ireland.
Yeah, by the way, Google, just because you seem to have your headquarters over in Dublin, slightly seeing through that ruse.
Yeah, exactly. It makes no difference.
I entirely agree with you. But is anyone going to be surprised by this front page of the Eye?
No.
No.
I just think they're just missing the point. They really are. If they had any idea about what people really feel, and most people don't really have a problem with wealth creators or people who are earning a lot of money, as providing they're not scamming people. But it's the companies which we know are ripping us off. The companies that don't have to pay full wages because the taxpayer pick up the tab.
But isn't this the exact dichotomy that just in the last 2 minutes we've talked about how for free you could get 25k for not working, and yet on the other hand some individuals here who have gone out and have created wealth and have been entrepreneurial are going to get absolutely slammed. I mean, doesn't that
that's
just
why
also
it
show
should be
you
the
what
big companies, the corporations?
is?
But they go, oh no, well they'll move. Well, where are they going to move to? America? Wouldn't go there.
Not at the moment.
They'll probably go to to Dublin, which I think is very nice. We've got to take another break. Back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie with you and with me, Amy Fisher, former Director of Communications for the Conservative Party. The Guardian for Thursday, 4-0 win. The Lionesses roar back. They needed this win after their last showing to even just stay in the competition. But 4-0 win over the Netherlands, a good day for the Lionesses.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, and the Lionesses do seem to... I mean, they've had a bit of a sticky time with it, but they really are something to be very proud of.
Yeah, they pull it out the bag when they need to.
They really do. And this is a great photo as well. And yeah, I mean...
Georgia Stanway.
Yeah, and 4-0 is pretty convincing by anybody's estimation.
They must be absolutely chuffed to bits with that. Good for them. Labour MPs call on the Prime Minister to tackle cost of living crisis. This astonishes me, these Labour MPs. And the doctors that are going on strike. It's like, do you know how broke we are? Have you got any sense? Do you understand that there's nothing in the pot? But they don't seem to. They're just calling on. They want money after money after money after money, and there isn't any.
It's more. I'm sort of slightly surprised actually. The doctors. I think it's on the front of the Express about the fact they're going to strike again. But I'm quite surprised the threat of striking from the resident, formerly known as junior doctors, isn't more prominently, because I mean it's absolutely atrocious. They got a massive 22%,
and then they got 5.4%.
Yes,
and now they want another 20.
And you know, I think obviously the high point of. People really did appreciate everything the NHS was doing during COVID, and we all clapped at kind of in the evenings and whatnot once a week. But I'm just not sure who the resident doctors think they're now speaking to, because yes, you do an incredibly important job, but sorry, really, what? Out of all public sector workers who have had barely inflationary pay rises,
so they've had 27.5% already.
Let alone lots of other people not in the public sector who haven't had any pay rises for the last 4 or 5 years. Like, are you so in your bubble that you cannot understand that the vast majority of people are looking at you just saying, what are you...
Well, this is what Wes Streeting has said, isn't it? He said, look, the public will never forgive you this time. But you won't have public support this time.
I completely agree with Wes Streeting, which is a sentence I'm not sure
there you go.
believed I would sort of produce on an evening. But yeah, listen, I'm surprised it's not on more front pages apart from the Express, because I think the vast majority of people will just be looking at it going, no. Like, please get real.
Yeah. I mean, but we'll see the train drivers come back for more as well. They got a massive payout.
Birmingham
as well.
City Council, let's not forget. There's all the rubbish that's been piled
6
up
months.
since
6 months of living in squalor.
Yeah.
Absolutely disgraceful.
And have just walked out again this afternoon from coming to any sort of deal. So.
No deal's done. I was absolutely ridiculous. Formula One racing boss, this is the Metro, Christian Horner, has been removed from his job. Not one of these newspapers has said Horner put in the corner.
Be honest, how long did it take you to come up with that?
1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 second. And I'm disappointed that nobody's... I think that was quite a good headline, though. It would have been. This is Jerry Horner's, Spice Girl, Jerry Horner's husband has been shunted out of Red Bull, the Red Bull team, even though he did you can't argue that he did an amazing job with Red Bull. They won it absolutely with Verstappen. They won everything, but he was accused of controlling and coercive behaviour by a younger female colleague. Sort of ties back into that Gregg Wallace conversation, doesn't it? That I wonder, again, was she too sensitive or was he too much? And then you've got to look at the power dynamic that happens when you're the boss and you're not the boss.
So if I recall, there were these accusations came out about his behaviour, sort of an internal inquiry cleared him, but then in the aftermath of that, some of the direct text messages between sort of were leaked because somebody was clearly sort of very angry and felt that there had been a bit of a whitewash. I mean, my read on it is the company would have kept him if they could.
Of course they would have.
So the fact they've
already replaced him, haven't they?
So the fact that he was sort of booted so quickly suggests, look, reading between the lines, but they obviously felt they needed to sever ties really very quickly, and from having had this incredibly successful year.
I mean, it's damage control.
Yes, in the most brutal.
Again, you've got people like Jimmy Savile, who was protected. You've got people like Hugh Edwards that was protected to a degree, and eventually, I think that damage becomes just too much, doesn't it?
The pressure becomes such that the sort of walls are going to break. I mean, it'll be interesting to sort of see what Jerry Halliwell, Horner, does now. She obviously sort of very much stood.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right for a bit of money. I don't think he's going to be hard up.
No, and nor is she. I mean, she must still get sort of millions in kind of royalties, and
I would have thought so.
You know, deservedly so. Has been a member of one of the most successful girl bands of sort of the 1990s. I just mean, there sometimes in the past has been a succession of women who stand by their powerful husbands. And then even for them, it gets to a point where they just think, I don't want to be married.
Well, I think when this was first announced, and I thought there was some hint of some sexual inappropriate behaviour as well, but I may be wrong.
No, there was.
There was, wasn't there? And there were questions whether she'd stand by him, and clearly she has. But he'll just go and join another team, presumably. There'll be lots of people who'll have him.
Oh,
I mean, look what he managed to do for Red Bull. I think somebody
I'm sure
else
there
will
are
have
some
him.
people, maybe Saudi type way, who sort of don't view this as being
don't really care about
a particular
this.
issue, reputational or otherwise.
Yeah. And the other front page, the headline on the Daily Mail: proof work doesn't pay under Labour. I don't think it's fair to blame Labour. It's under the benefit system, isn't it? Rather than just Labour. This was the same under the Tories.
Look, the Behemoth, which is the benefit system, is indeed not something that can just be pinned onto the current government by any stretch of the imagination, but the actions they have taken in the last 10 days or so have really not made it any better whatsoever. And so for that, they have to take responsibility. But for the overall, always with the benefit system, it sort of feels like somebody does come along with an idea to try and fix it, and then for all of these reasons, practical, political, it just kind of ends up becoming a bit of a plaster over the gunshot wound, and then the whole thing just rolls on for sort of another few years, and here we are with things sadly not getting any better.
Yeah, absolutely. The Daily Star, again, the Red Bull story, and Jerry stood by him despite his sex texts scandal. So there was that as well as the bullying concerns. But I mean, he's not finished. By any means.
Because he's also quite young. He's in his early sort of 50s.
Yeah, he's quite young, I think. But I think they've got enough money to see them through. If they had to.
I don't think anyone's pawning the wedding ring quite yet.
No, not yet. I think that they'll be all right. It's just it must. I mean, having been such an incredible success at something, it must be really galling.
What do you go and do? What that whole bit of your literal existence, your part of yourself, exactly, is no longer there. So there is an enormous emotional shock there.
Yeah, and ego and all of that plays in, which is really probably incredibly important, especially in sport.
Yes, and that particular sport as well, motor racing,
masculine type sport. But I think that he'll be okay. The Mirror. This goes into the Southport report that has come out, which is showing an awful lot of issues with how Rudder ran amok and how that was able to happen. Some recommendations in the report, though, is an idea of pre-crime, of putting tags on people they think might commit a crime like this, which is an extraordinary thing.
But which to some extent is already meant to happen, and through prevent.
But you don't tag them or curfew them.
No, you don't. That is going
That's the next step.
That's going the next step, and I don't think we as a country should be looking at that before we fully understood and interrogated and improved the existing systems, some of which failed here. So let's not put the cart before the horse.
I mean, there were a lot, weren't there? There were people, social services, police, everybody was involved. But look, there'll be more information that comes out about this. But Amy Fisher, thank you.
Very nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you, and I'll see you very, very soon. Amy Fisher, the former Director of Communications for the Conservative Party. Right, coming up, it's just you and me, and I want to talk to you about the Gregg Wallace story. Actually, we can probably shove in Christian Horner as well, and Wyn Evans. In fact, there's no shortage of men who've lost their jobs, lost their positions because of what they've said or what they've done. So with Gregg Wallace, he has just been told that he is fired. He is sacked from the BBC because of his behaviour. Now, he says that he's been cleared of some of the most egregious complaints against him, and he recognises that his language may have been a bit, well, he was a greengrocer, perhaps a bit fruity. So I want to know whether you have any sympathy for Gregg Wallace or what it's like in your workplace. Do tell.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, starting message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space on a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no. I do.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you. And I want to know whether you think banter at the workplace is dead. Is it too dangerous now to be banterous at work? What's it like at your workplace? Do you have to zip your lip? Do you have to stop yourself from, I don't know, joking about even just the weather? Or do you have to stop yourself from joking with women? Or do you stop yourself from having a bit of banter with younger people in your workplace? Look, most places are really full of banter. I mean, a newsroom is probably one of the best or worst at it, I would say. I mean, I've mostly only ever really worked in newsrooms, but I worked as well with the military. And with the military, it's all banter. It's all banter, and it's very dark humour, especially if you're in a war zone, right? The humour is, if you heard some of the things that we were joking about, I would be cancelled. But that's how you get through the day, right? So I imagine that in places where there's a high risk element, or like fire stations, like I said, military, police, hospitals, right? That banter is something that you do, and you laugh at the very worst things that you're seeing, and take the mick out of the very most distasteful things ever. But it doesn't mean you mean them, right? It doesn't mean you mean them, and it doesn't mean that there is harm intended by those comments. I mean, I think within minutes of Princess Diana dying, and there were newsrooms up and down the country that were head down, couldn't believe this, this announcement that Tony Blair had just made, absolutely working their guts out. But it was within minutes there were jokes. The jokes were flying around about Princess Diana's death. Now, nobody was laughing at the fact she died. Everybody was in shock. Everybody was working really, really hard to make sure that the facts were out there and the truth was out there in the best possible journalistic way. But in order to cope with things like that, there are jokes. The 7/7 bombings in a newsroom, again, there was dark humour, banter, as a means of getting through some pretty dark and awful things that you were then having to, either in my case, go on air and present and talk about it. The fire, the Grenfell fire. I mean, all of these things. Newsrooms, in my experience, have a habit of trying to not lighten the mood, cope. Just as it's a coping mechanism. Now, I don't know about other businesses, but I would imagine that, again, on largely male building sites, and then you might get women who have become electricians or plumbers or whatever, and then do you have to adjust, or should those women have to adjust? I felt that I had to adjust, and actually it was my humour anyway when I was a young reporter in a newsroom, which all the other reporters were men. So I just adjusted to their humour, and I became as bad, as probably worse in some cases, as they were. The same with the military. If I was like I said, in a war zone or wherever I was with the military, I was the minority. I was the visitor, if you like. So I felt that I should adapt to their humour, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I liked being one of the blokes, if you like. I mean, when I was in Russia, my nickname was Knuckles Newscaster, because I took on some FSB monsters. I mean, they were the size of two wardrobes on top of each other, trying to take tape out of my camera on Lake Baikal, and so I got quite aggressive with them, and the lads were like, "Oh crikey!" One of the first times when I went to Bosnia, I can't tell you what it was that I said to my team, but I was met with a team of soldiers who were taking me around the conflict, and I knew that they were concerned that they had a woman joining the team as head of the team. They were like going, "Oh, what are we going to do with this?" So I told an extremely disgusting and rude thing to them within a second of meeting them. And months down the line, when I'd been with these guys, they said, God, that was such a relief that we knew that you were as base as we are, that we knew that you were one of us, that we could spend time, we're going to be spending a lot of time with each other. So I said something, I mean, I can't even repeat it. It was so rude. But, you know, it was, they just went, oh, okay, good. Right, well, she's all right then. And that's how we carried on for the rest of the 2 years or so that we worked together. So I don't know whether, I think banter's vital. I think it's really important, but is it something that's dying out? Angela Rayner, she wants to ban it. Ban banter. In fact, she wants to make sure you can't even have banter in a pub or a restaurant, because the staff, that's their workplace, and they need to be protected from other people's banter. I think it's an absolute tragedy. But there's a difference between banter and bad behaviour. And then there's a no touching rule. There's a no, you know, asking incredibly personal questions rule. There are things that I keep so personal that I don't even tell my best mates. You know, there are things, there are lines that can be crossed, and it appears that Gregg Wallace crossed them. He crossed them. And it's cost him his job. Christian Horner, clearly, in terms of at least the bullying accusations, crossed the line. I can't answer to the sex texting because I don't know anything really about that. But was it just banter? How far can you go with banter? Should it be banned entirely? Should we all be like robots at work? And just, you know, hello, nice day. And have you found yourself now too afraid to have a joke at work, or even down the pub with the bar worker or with the waiting staff? Have you found yourself just being, I don't know what I can say anymore, I don't know if I can tell that joke anymore? And who are we, especially as British people, without sarcasm? I mean, I don't think I could get through a shift without sarcasm. It's just not possible. My producer today, John, I work with John and Gabriella. I think we barely say a word to each other that isn't sarcastic, but it makes us laugh, right? It takes us through the work that we've got to do. It's important. But is it being ruined? I mean, and the other thing is, do you have any sympathy for Gregg Wallace? He said he's going to fight this. The report is out later today. I don't know if I don't think we're going to get to see all of it, but we will get to see some of it. When does banter become bullying as well? Because one person's banter might be another person's, you know, too sad or upset to say anything about it. So it is difficult these days. Maybe it always was. I think it always was. But people didn't used to complain because you just thought, well, this is my life, I've got to put up with it now. Give me a call. I'd really love to hear from you about what it's like in your workplace, and, you know, have you had to adapt to it? Who are you most afraid of? Gregg Wallace made a statement saying that he was actually too afraid to go to the pub with any work colleagues at the end of a shoot, especially the younger ones, because he was scared of them. He was scared that they would report him for saying something inappropriate. So, give me a call. 0344 499 1000. I have to tell you that calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you straight back. You can text me as well. Text the word talk and then your message to 87222. I also think there's a power dynamic issue, and we'll probably get to that a little bit later on in this hour. I think that sometimes if you're in a powerful position at work, you've got to be more mindful of who you're teasing that's maybe on a lower peg. But anyway, let me know what it's like at your workplace, and have you had to adapt to this new world that can see you cancelled after 21 years at the BBC. Gregg Wallace will never go back, whether he wants to or not. Lisa is in Kent. Hello, Lisa.
No, good morning, Petrie. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I've
Good.
just come from the night shift, so I was listening away and I was quite fascinated by your conversation topic. I just wanted to share something with you. I think you might find this a little bit amusing. Well, I did, personally. So our son was in I won't say what regiment, he was in the British Army for 10 years. Recently left, as many have, unfortunately, due to,
the way they're treated.
Yes, exactly. The morale is so low. I don't think people understand how they're feeling.
Oh, it's terrible for them. My heart breaks for the way that they're treated.
6 months prior to him leaving, there was a non-military guy, so to speak, let's put it like that, turned up, and there was a big meeting in the auditorium, if you like, to discuss their ways, basically, and about how banter can go too far, dark humour, which if you go back in time, Petrie, they've always had it. Now, people don't differentiate between not meaning any harm. Everybody, jokes and dark humour in certain areas of work and life gets you through. They don't mean it as any insult to any individual. And that's where people don't understand. And I mean, I'm a little bit older generation, not old, but I'm in, my late 40s. But the thing is, it's the dynamics of our life has changed so much. So this guy, anyway, that's why I've got off a tangent. So this guy turns up and literally knows not very much. It was kind of like, like they subcontract, like one of these speakers to tell you the way forward in 2024, 2025. They all got up and walked out. And I was quite amused by that. So the guy in charge of the lads, let's so to speak, the corporal and so just said, you know what, we're not listening to this, we're going.
Because what do they know? What do they know? I mean, when I've been with people like your boy in places that are dark, the humour is the only thing that gets you through. I remember one particular time on the back of a flatbed military lorry with a canvas roof on it, and we were being transported from Split up to Vitesse, which was I think it was a 9-hour blooming journey, and made even slower because it was the winter, the roads turned to mud, it was snowing, it was I can't tell you how cold it was. It was absolutely freezing. And there were about 6 of us in the back of this lorry because it was the only way we could get up there in time for something that I had to film. And we were singing the rudest, crudest, most disgusting songs and belittling people and and if I were to tell you the body of some of those songs, I would be cancelled. But that was so important.
Yeah, I have. I mean, it's kind of, I know it's a little bit out there in our generation, but I find that it really helps them get through. And, even in my workplace, if I'm honest, the women are, and this is where I just like to be fair and balanced. We've got a son, we've got 2 daughters, okay? And we're living in a society now, no joke, went out for a meal the other day. There was a table, there was 4 of us, and there was a table of 6. So this family of 6 were all heads in phones, no conversation whatsoever. My husband made a point of saying, what is the point of them coming out for a family meal when there's no conversation? Now, that is where I find that we're going, and that's what scares the life out of me, literally scares me. And I've never felt like this before, but if this is progression, they can keep it. I don't like it. I'd rather go back. I know that might sound a bit mental, but it's like no one talks, everyone's phone is down, head is in their phone, and the education is dropping because I believe that that's got something to do with no one's talking, no one's having a conversation.
There's no critical thinking left. Yeah, there's no critical thinking or banter or arguments and by arguments I mean discussions, right? Nobody can do that anymore.
No, it's very black and white. It's just like, well, I don't like what you say, so therefore go away and we won't entertain you. I mean, even within politics, like today, politically, I'm not that political, but, left, right, middle, reform, whatever. Nigel Farage, I see clips of it today. He stood up and asked the question in Parliament's questions, as you should. No one answered him. They all heckled, they all laughed, they all joked. They've got to be very, very... They've got to really take note of themselves, because if they're laughing at him, they're basically laughing at everybody that is kind of looking and thinking, this is just a clown show. But you
Absolutely.
are taking the absolute mickey out of the British people here. And people are getting very angry. And as I say, I'm finding this at work. Everybody's talking about politics to the point that I didn't even think... I mean, you cross your vote because that's what we've been entitled to do, and I think everybody should vote. However, I just feel now that it's become, it's almost like if you are on this side, you're this, if you're on that side, you're that. And anyone that's got anything that they don't like to hear, they just discredit them, call them names, and heckle them and make you feel about that small, but they're meant to be the kind brigade. I just think the hypocrisy is off scales. And as you were talking to the young lady earlier, so I forgot her name.
Amy Fisher.
Yeah, Amy, I beg your pardon. She said that you don't know what's truth and what's the truth today. You don't know whether you're reading an article, whether that's the truth or whether they've blown it out of context. And it's the same when people make accusations. If there was only two people in the room, only they know what's happened. But because society's so scared, it's like, get rid of them, because it doesn't look good. So therefore, you could be condemning an innocent man or woman to, but nobody, do you know what I mean? It's like, I thought you were innocent until proven guilty, but now you are guilty and you have to prove your innocence. It's just really bizarre.
Yeah, no, we are. That is true. That is true. If you want to cancel somebody, you can just make something up, and they've got to prove that they didn't say that or didn't do that. And I do think that when it comes to discourse and just saying to somebody, nobody's prepared to hear the counter argument anymore. But I think that is also why banter is dying, because banter is on the edge, isn't it? It might tease you about something, might take the mick out of something, and then immediately you're offended by it. It's like, how dare you? I mean, I'm deeply offended. I think I had a caller the other night. I was wearing a pink blouse, who said, "Oh, that blouse isn't doing for you what you think it's doing." And it's just kind of like that. To me, that's banter.
Yeah,
I did go home and put it in the bin, but I won't be wearing that again. I won't be wearing that again.
Someone said to me at work today, she said, your hair looks a bit rough today. Did you sleep in it last night?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
But luckily, you know what, Lisa, I am so robust that I don't think there's anything anybody could say to me that I wouldn't laugh at, because I have my closest friends. Is just the most horrible to me. I mean, as a joke, banter. But he calls me regularly fat, regularly ugly. He said to me I was a gay eyesore yesterday. But I know he loves me, and I know where that comes from, and my other friends as well. We are horrible to each other, but it's banter, and it makes you realise it doesn't matter what somebody says to you. Actually.
No, but the other generations have been core conditioned, Petrie, into thinking that, if you slightly feel a bit, I don't like that, oh my God, I know what to do. I'm going to waste everyone's time and make a massive complaint, a formal complaint to HR, da-di-da-di-da, and then and people just go, do you know what? And this is and I will promise you I'll leave you to get on with other callers, but I just feel now that everyone is going to, when I said looking down on their phones, people are literally going to look down,
but that's where they want us to be.
They don't want to talk, and that is very, very dangerous.
It's a lack of ability of critical thinking and sarcasm and things like that. They're all really important uses of your brain. Is your son now he's no longer in? Do you think he'll find it difficult to adjust to the world as it is outside?
As a bit of an insider, I can tell you, when the lads were in, do you remember when the morale started really dropping, when as I say again, politics were coming out and just not really giving a toss about them really. And you know, is it the Bippy Stockholm thing?
Stockholm syndrome. Yeah.
No. You know the boat that I can't recall. Sorry, you know the boat they were building for the.
The Bibby Stockholm.
Bibby Stockholm. Yeah, I beg your pardon. Sorry, I told you I'm not familiar with politics. So they built that particular, and it had a gym, it had everything in it. At the time, my lads were in Estonia. Okay, and it was, as you know, freezing conditions. Yeah. And where our lads were based, they literally, Petrie, had to dig their way out to get out of their hut in the morning, our soldiers. Okay, because it was freezing cold, even to the point now, like my son, he doesn't complain about it. He's got another job now, but he suffers with his fingers. He gets like a little bit of arthritis, and they reckon it was to do with the fact that they were so cold at the time. You know, he doesn't. He does flare up, but he doesn't sort of go and go, I want compensate. He doesn't do any of that. He just gets on with it. But he says, you know, the fact that we had to dig ourselves out, and then at the time the news was on about, people over here, you know, more on the left, I suppose, were going, you can't possibly put these men on there. That's, you know, they deserve better. Put them in a hotel. And it would be better
than some of the military accommodation that is collapsing.
Exactly. Yeah. And they were looking at that and going, how bloody dare you? We are fighting for this country to make sure everybody is protected the best way we can with the very little resources. Bear in mind, very little resources we've got. Their kit was at a very low standard. People were, you know, the higher ranks were kind of not really giving a monkeys about how they weren't being listened to, and this is why you have got depleting numbers going down every single day, unfortunately, because even the recruitment videos, they were laughing at the recruit. If you looked at the latest recruitment videos for the British Army, you will laugh your socks off.
It's because they've been done by a private company as well. They've got no idea what they're talking about.
They have no idea.
No idea. Well, listen, send in my love, won't you? I've got a lot of admiration.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I got a lot of admiration for people who work with the military, who work in the military. Yeah. And Lisa, I love you as well. So it's really, really lovely to talk to you. Have a nice rest now. You've worked the night shift. Yeah, banter is so important. I think we're losing it at our peril, I really do. I'm going to take a very quick break now, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good morning. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And we're talking about office banter, the way you behave at work. And I just want to know how far is too far? Should banter be banned? Angela Rayner wants it banned in the workplace. No banter in the workplace. I can't even imagine a workplace where there's no banter. It would be so dry and cold and impersonal. But I suppose that's the point, isn't it? They want to turn us into robots. But I think banter is important. I genuinely do. It's always been an important part of my career, and it's an important part of my life. I'm always taking the mick. It's what my friendship group does. We love each other. We're incredibly close, incredibly supportive of each other. But we do take the mick all the time. And it's just our love language. Maybe that's what it is to use an Americanism. That's our love language is to be rude to each other. But it, that's not for everybody. I can appreciate, but I think it makes a difference between somebody you barely know and somebody you know and really, really like, is if you can banter with them. That's my measure anyway. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. But listen, I want to hear from you. How important do you think banter is? Should it be banned in the workplace? Look, it's cost Wyn Evans his job. He's the Go Compare man. Well, not anymore. Apparently, it seems to, although there seems to be a little bit more to it, but Gregg Wallace has also lost his job, potentially through just thinking things are funny when they're not funny, and using banter with the wrong people, perhaps. How do you judge that? How do you make sure that you're not in front of HR, but you continue to have a human relationship with people in the workplace? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Or have you been completely scared off it now? You don't dare say boo to a goose. Probably can't say that anymore either. Janice is in Clacton-on-Sea. Hello, Janice, how are you?
Oh, my God, thank you for taking my call. I love you so much.
Oh, bless you.
Oh, how are you?
I'm really well. Yeah, I'm really well.
Bailey, I've got Ratty still.
Have you? Good.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I've had all this stuff since I was 15 years old. Like, you get over it. I don't care if Gregg Wallace drops his trousers. You and I know that if you're in a male environment, you're going to put up with that stuff. I told you, obviously, whoever was on the phone. Now, I'm going to really say that I used to go down the pub. I used to work in IT. 250 to start with. It got dwindled down. But we used to go down the pub. The conversations with me as a 50-year-old. And they'd all go, oh, can't talk about that stuff with her. Oh, no. Yes, you can. We talked about barbecues. You know what I mean by barbecues?
Barbecues?
Yeah, barbecues. Well, no. Well, you roast a pig. No, they accepted me. They accepted me. I had a lot of bad stuff going on. I've had woolies. I've had all sorts. But you accept it, because if I complained, then I would get ostracised or I'd lose my job. It was he's accepting it. You have to accept it.
I think there are some things you have to accept. I can't imagine any of my colleagues dropping their trousers. If they did, I'd probably laugh.
I've been in a restaurant and I've had woolies out, mate.
That probably.
Yeah. No, but
it wouldn't offend me. I wouldn't be horrified.
I would have lost my job.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been horrified. But I suppose it just depends when.
I laughed.
When banter can cross over into being bullying, maybe.
No, it wasn't bullying. I wasn't bullied at all. No, believe me, I was down in a restaurant. I got one either side of it. I looked attractive then. I don't know, but I just laughed it off. You've got to laugh it off. I think Gregg Wallace is what's going on with him is a little bit over the top, because I don't know about you. You're a beautiful woman, and I'm sure that, you know, you've done jobs and you have had men that have come up to you and you've made been inappropriate, but you bust it off. You get on and do your job. Otherwise,
yeah, I think actually, I think
you walk, Petrie, you walk.
Yeah,
You know
I don't think it's a difficult one. When I was younger, definitely there was inappropriate behaviour, which I found some of it really quite scary.
Oh, so did I.
But now,
so did I. At 15, so did I.
I think that men would be more scared of me.
Being grabbed, thrown over desk. I had all that, mate. I did.
Yeah, that's where you don't put up with it. But
well, you can't. When you're a child, 15, child, worked at the British Airline Pilots, you thought that was the way it was. But then you grow into it, and then you realise, yeah, I'm in a male environment, and I've got to put up with certain stuff. I've swashed them away. I don't put up with it.
I do think you have to be...
alternative is to go and complain, and I'll lose my job as a woman in the IT. I lose my job.
Yeah, there is. I understand exactly what you're saying, and because I was always in quite a male environment, it didn't. My humour is very. I think if it were to be defined as a gender, you'd probably say it's quite masculine. But I'm fairly robust. There were times in my youth where there was a power dynamic which made me incredibly uncomfortable. You know, a director coming to my hotel room when I was out on a shoot, or as a presenter or something, stuff like that, which became more than awkward. Nowadays, I genuinely, I think I'd probably come across as fairly formidable. I don't think blokes would, unless they were very brave, would ever try on with me now, because I just wouldn't stand for it. But that's a confidence thing, I think, and maybe I didn't have that confidence when I was younger. So yeah, it is difficult when you're talking about banter. Can only go so far. I think once it becomes physical, that's something completely different. Or if it becomes scary, then that is something else. Thank you for your call, Janice. Great call. I'm going to take a quick break. Yep, and I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is talk.
Hi there, it's Petrie here with you. Very good morning, and on Talk, obviously, and we're talking about banter and how it should banter be banned from the workplace. Angela Rayner certainly thinks that it should be, and even in places like pubs where people are working, that you can be offended by overhearing somebody else's banter. A conversation, and I suppose everybody's banter is going to be different. It's going to be, some of it is silly, some of it's mean, but if it's banter, then it's usually amongst friends, so I don't know how you could be offended on behalf of somebody else if you're hearing something. But anyway, what's it like in your workplace, and have you had to change the way you talk to each other? Has banter pretty much been self-imposed banned, if you like, because you're so worried? And we're talking about this because of Gregg Wallace, who's been accused of more than just banter. But he says that, you know, he knows that his language got a bit fruity. He knows that he probably told jokes that were off colour. You know, he once paraded around with a sock over his private parts. That was all he was wearing, and that was probably funny when you're 15, and he probably thought it was funny when he was 50. I don't know, but you know, is that going too far, or is that just a laugh? I wouldn't have been I wouldn't wanted to see that, to be fair, but I don't think I would have been offended about it. I'd have just thought that was pretty pathetic. But that's because I'm a bit older now and a bit more confident, and maybe when you're a young person going into the workplace, you do find everything, but you take everything personally. I don't know, I never did. But listen, give me a call, let me know what you think about this. Is it too dangerous to banter at work now? Let's go to David, who's in Belfast. Hello, David.
Hiya.
Hiya, good morning. How are you?
I'm grand. Here, I want to tell you a wee bit about that, right?
Okay. Nobody's done that to me for a very long time.
Yeah, with us guys in the building sites, 5 stories up, maybe 20 of us, and a wee girl just looked like you, walked down the street, lovely clothes, dressed to the nines, and we went. That's Belfast bricklayers and.
But building sites now, you get into trouble for doing that on a building site now, don't you? There's all these signs, particularly around London, that says that we're considerate builders. I've never thought that a wolf whistle was harmful. I mean...
A wolf whistle, you're looking good, girl. That's what that whistle's about. It's not a wolf. You know, you can't jump off your job and run down and say, hello, where are you going? You know?
Yeah, no, it's not. I like you say, it absolutely doesn't bother me. Like I said, it's a dim and distant past now, but it never used to bother me at all. I mean, if it was followed up with some crude comment, then it'd be like, oh, come on, mate. But you know, just a wolf whistle. No, I never saw a problem with that.
Yeah, no, we used to love being on the building sites and nice girls walking by, any girl walking by, you know, it could be every girl walking by.
Yeah. Did some of them used to get offended by it? Would you see people get offended?
No, they didn't. They used to flick her hair and go, look up and wave.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can't do. But that's not allowed on building sites anymore.
It's terrible, you know. Terrible.
But we've stopped communicating in any way with each other, though, haven't we? No. I mean, it's too difficult now to communicate with each other.
Yeah. Well, we were builders, birds in the eaves of buildings, and girls, you know. You see some huffy ones that just, you know, but why be huffy?
I don't understand it. It literally doesn't bother me. I mean, there are women who probably would be bothered by it, but I don't know. I don't understand why. But what about when you were down the pub, David, with the barmaid? I don't know if you can call them that anymore. The bar person. Was there banter there? Was that reciprocated? Was it
absolute banter? You know, if you'd have said, can I hold your hand or give you a kiss? She'd have smacked you one. She'd just smacked you, and that was you in the limelight. No, you didn't do it in the bar. You tried. A lot of the boys come out of the work and tried, but if they tried too hard, they got a good smack in the chin.
Yeah, I was going to say that a Belfast barmaid is probably not someone you muck around with, right?
You don't muck around with. But the thing is, the barmaids took the banter, and if it was too much banter, your mates, the gang you were with, drawed you in, and said, "Stop it,"
And do you think that that it's women that are ruining banter? That there's a sense that women don't have the sense of humour?
I think it's some Looney Tunes that just don't get the banter. Why go to a pub to beat up with people and not enjoy the banter? And then if somebody oversteps the mark, then some Looney Tune person, could be a woman, could be a man, says, no, that's too much, but don't get into the banter if you're not in the banter.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I just think that we've lost the ability in this country recently. It's this whole thing about not being able to debate anything, not being able to disagree with somebody. And I put banter in the same pot. It's a lack of ability to communicate. Like you said, with banter, if it does go too far, you can just go, "Oi, that."
Yeah.
Right, that's enough now, or that went a bit far, bring it back a bit, rather than just getting huffy about it.
There's people jump in the banter and say it's enough, and they don't understand what the other two or three have been having great banter, and they're going, stop. And then the other two or three looking at the person going, why are you interrupting?
Yeah.
It's madness. It's madness.
Yeah, I think we lose something very in terms of communication with, it's like if swearing was banned, I'd lose half of my vocabulary pretty much. But, I think that, all of these forms of communication are incredibly important, and they're particularly important to us Brits, because banter is often sarcasm, isn't it? It's taking the mick out of each other. It is poking at each other. That's our sense of humour.
What do you mean, us Brits? I'm from Belfast. What do you mean? What's the crack?
You don't want to be part.
We're like Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland. I think that still makes you British. That makes you British, not English. I didn't say English.
What? No, sure, we're outside because of this deal.
Oh yeah, who knows? But listen, we still love you, and I love the Irish sense of humour. The Irish sense of humour is pretty much entirely sarcasm.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so and I love it. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It is my cup of tea, and I just think it's really sad that if we can't banter and be sarcastic with each other and take the mick out of each other, which is our love language, then what have we got? Just boring.
Well, all we've got is blonde jokes.
Is what?
Blonde jokes.
Blondes. I don't even think you can do that anymore.
No, Well, if she can say, are you blonde? Are you blonde? Are you blonde?
You can't even do blonde jokes anymore. I think the only demographic you can still take the mick out of legally are ginger people.
No. She said Kelly.
You can't say that in Ireland, can you? But yeah, no, you can. They're the only ones legally. They don't have any legal protection.
No. Gingers will kill you. Don't come near a ginger. I'm having a laugh here myself.
Oh, it's lovely to talk to you, David. Thank you for calling in. I've got to take a quick break, but I will be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until the top of the hour, and that gives us about 10 minutes. So we're talking about banter, because it seems that some people go too far with banter. And Gregg Wallace, he has been cancelled. Wyn Evans, the opera singer guy, go compare fella. He was slightly more than banter though. I don't know if you ever did get to see the comment that he made. I don't think it was made public. It may have been, but it was disgusting actually. But I don't know. Even though it was disgusting, if he'd said it about me or to me, I'd have just said that's disgusting. Grow up. But I don't think I wouldn't have reported him. It wouldn't have occurred to me actually to do that. But that's maybe because I've been around a lot of people who've always been very banterous, and that's always been my life. My whole career has been working with mostly guys, and they tend to have more banter, I think, than women. And I've got a tough skin now. I don't care. You can say whatever you like to me. People who message horrible things just makes me laugh. I just think it's either pathetic or it makes me laugh. So I don't really care. And I think that is a good thing, because you go through life, if you take everything too seriously, or if you take everything personally, you can have a miserable life. So it's really good to get a thicker skin and just to brush it off, because it doesn't matter. I don't care. Literally do not care. And I'm really grateful that I don't care about stuff like that. It doesn't bother me at all. But Angela Rayner, in the new sort of look at workplace behaviours and things, thinks that banter should be banned. I mean, how do you ban banter? Why would you ban banter? I think it's important. I think it's part of communicating, particularly for British people. We're sarcastic. We take the mick. It's the first thing probably we say to each other is just to take the mick, isn't it? Or is that just me? So, I don't know. Give me a call. We've only got a few minutes left, so it'd be good to talk to you. Tristan has called from Bedford. Hello, Tristan. How are you?
Not too bad, Petrie. How are you?
Oh, it's good to hear from you.
Thank you.
Tell me about banter. Is it getting too dangerous now to banter?
Pretty much, yeah, now. I mean, I like someone who's a bit sarcastic and has dry humour. I mean, I spent time in the States and they didn't understand sarcasm. They saw it as you were being cheeky or being rude.
Yeah.
So
sarcasm is mwah. It's a beautiful thing, sarcasm. I love it. Yeah.
So you had to be quite careful. But, I mean, nowadays in this country, I mean, we have an authoritarian government towards people they want to be authoritarian to. That's how it comes across to me. I mean, I'm very careful if someone says something that's a bit near the knuckle or something, how I would like to respond, I don't respond because I don't know how that person's going to react unless it's someone I actually know and I have a rapport with and I know how I know that it will be okay.
So even if they start it off with a sarky comment, you won't join in just in case?
No, I mean, I had someone at work a couple of months ago. They were talking about fetishes, for example, and
as you do.
I will fetishes.
Fetishes. Yeah.
And I was never going to go into that conversation because I don't know how I was going to be interpreted. So, I could say what I like or something, but it could be interpreted the totally wrong way. So I was like, okay, and just did not even respond to it, to be honest with you.
I mean, that takes some self-control, doesn't it, to be able to do that? But you're genuinely nervous that could have got you into trouble.
I don't know. That's the thing. You don't know. I mean, I had a really good friend of mine who I've been friends for absolutely years, and when we had a conversation last year about voting and everything last year with the election, and I mentioned about voting reform, and suddenly he turned on me and he was like, I didn't know you're far right, Tristan. And I was like, okay, I'm not, but fair enough. And then suddenly a couple of days later he sends me a message saying, I don't think we should talk to each other anymore. And I'm thinking, we've been friends for 20 plus years and you now don't. I was like, okay, fair enough, that's your choice. So,
yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because this is part of the problem that we have at the moment, is that we can't ever debate anything anymore. And we can't ever disagree anymore. You've got to be, there are people whose politics I don't like, who've made voting decisions that I don't like, but I have to separate that from who I know.
Well, the thing is, I can, but for some reason, certain people, I don't like to say left or right, but certain people that they perceive themselves to be on the left, they can't seem to separate it. It's like, oh my God, you've said that. I can't believe you believe that. And then suddenly you're like public enemy number one, even though you've been friends with that person for years.
And not giving you the chance to explain, or
no. They just sort of say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about or anything. And it's like, okay. So, and it does, to be honest with you, it diffuses the conversation and kills the conversation dead because that person has reacted just because you've had a different opinion to them.
I find this completely.
And that's scary.
Yeah, I find it really worrying that that either you agree with me or you're completely wrong, and nobody wants to listen to the other side of the argument. And I find that very much as a journalist doing this job, doing phone-ins. If I do something controversial, people, oh, you're wrong, you're a lefty, you should be fired. Like what?
Yeah.
You know, that is their immediate reaction because I don't agree with them.
Yeah.
You should be fired. Go and work somewhere. It's just like, hang on a minute. You know, do you not want to hear the other side of the argument? Do you not want to hear why I think like that? Because that is important. And if we discussions have already been shut down. Nobody's prepared to have a discourse, an argumentative discourse at the moment. And if we do the same with banter, I don't know how we communicate with each other, because it's just going to be hello, like robots. There's going to be nothing else there.
But I think that's what this government wants, because the thing is, as you said before, critical thinking. If no one has critical thinking, then that means there's no ideas.
Yeah.
There's no actual. There's no actual difference of opinion, and if there's not difference of opinion, and they just want people to agree.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, everything certain people say, if you're like, yep, you're right, yeah,
Well, then there's no pushback, is there? Yeah. There's no. You're not going to push back, and they do want to get rid of critical thinking. It's the whole thing of you're either right wing or you're left wing. I happen to believe that most people are pretty central, right on some issues and left on others. I think trying to put people into boxes is a real mistake, and then it just entrenches people.
Well, we saw it. I mean, I don't. I think one of your previous callers said about PMQs. I mean, I when I got back from work today, and I was watching PMQs, and Nigel Farage wanted to say something, and he was literally drowned out. But and it's like, well, that's really not going to help, because there's other people that are going to see that. And it's just going to it's going to look good for him and reform.
Well, they've been talking about sorting out the Commons for all the banter that they've got, booing at each other and all of that. And sometimes they do look like children, right? They do behave like children, but it is banter. And it is their way of, I think it's important. I think it adds to it. I mean, sometimes